This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Look at that. You can see that the sky is not clear at the moment. It's nice and overcast, which is not bad for the animal activities. A very, very good morning and welcome to the beginning of our morning safari. This is Sydney Pumurani Mikosi, and I'm traveling with Dave, who is my camera operator this morning. We are going to try by all means and get you some very, very interesting animals. Yesterday I was trying to get hold of Hosanna and it was difficult. This morning, let's hope for the best. For in case if you need our attention, you can follow us on Twitter, #SafariLive. So I haven't heard any sign of any of the cats in the area. Good morning again. I am going to be checking the Buffer's Hook cut line and the Cheetah cut line just to see if these animals are not coming back from the private concession side. So the weather is very good at the moment. It's not chilly and it's not warm. So the elephant has been everywhere because I can pick up quite a lot of elephant scent here in the area. And their tracks are also everywhere here. So the animal activities James, that is my hope too. I might be lucky and come across any of those species. So when there is too much water and too much food availability in the area, the animals' activities got restricted. The same applies to the predators. When they are having a kill, they don't travel long distances. So they mostly concentrate where the kill is. So the most important thing is the water availability. So here now water is available everywhere. So now let's cross over to the Masai Mara, where Tristan is having one of the night animals in the morning.
Well, Sydney, I'm glad that there's a lot more water. Things were looking a bit desperate and dire at one point, and as you can see, there goes a spotted eagle owl that's disappearing. Unfortunately, it's very, very dark, and so difficult for Manu to be able to follow it in this dark conditions. But it's a very good morning from the Mara once again. My name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Manu, as I just said, and it is a warm welcome to the East African portion of our safari this morning. Now, it is quite a cold morning. It's still clear skies after the rain that we had yesterday. And yesterday was quite interesting because David and I were not even 2 kilometers apart, and we had very different experiences for our afternoon. Manu and I had we got rain, but it was nothing major. It was a little bit of rain and it didn't last very long and then it disappeared. Whereas David sounded like he got pelted by hail and wind and serious amounts of rain, which is interesting given that we were so close together. It really is quite amazing the difference that a few kilometers here can make, and we got very lucky that we didn't get pelted at all. But what you can see is from where it actually rained, that kind of belt is covered and shrouded in mist. It almost looks like a lake at the bottom of the valley at the moment, but it's not. That's all just mist that is spread throughout from the marsh and going all the way down the valley on the edge of the escarpment, as you can see, going that way. So Absolutely beautiful. And then there's the sun that's starting to come out, and what we should get is we should get a period just now where the sun should come up and all this mist should still be around, and the mist should go kind of orangish color, which will be absolutely beautiful. So I do want to try and get down and into that mist belt as quick as we can, in the hope that we kind of maybe pick up something in that. It's always the best and most beautiful way to view animals when you're in those mist belts. Now remember, we want to hear from all of you. I know Sydney would have told you already, but I'm going to remind you because it makes our drives that much better if you all interact with us. So remember, hashtag SafariLive or @FC. Good. Now I believe Sydney has got a sun that is already starting to come up and has beat us to a sunrise. So let's go down there and see how it goes.
Look at that. This is a majestic sighting. Look at the beautiful sunrise here in Africa, specifically from Juma Game Reserve. This is lovely. So you can see the sun coming out in between the clouds there. Very shortly, this sun might disappear because I can see there's no much space between this sun and the clouds where the sun is heading to at the moment. So look at the reflection of that sun. Sunrise and sunset never gets old. Always look beautiful. So when the sun is coming out like this, some of the insects, such as the locust, they enjoy it because that is when they're going to become active. And also a lot of birds as well. Is the best time for them to do the sunbathing in the mornings. This is a beautiful sunrise. So you can see that now it might disappear at any time by those clouds we are seeing on top there. So we are very lucky to have this sunrise from this angle, as it is overcast at the moment. I was not expecting to see the sunrise this morning. Look at that. So you can see those clouds there painting a very nice picture on top. As I have indicated that this sun, the gap between the clouds is too small, it might disappear. Look at how fast the sun is disappearing now. It has been a lovely sunrise, and now I am going to carry on and see if we can find something more interesting again. So now let's go back to the Masai Mara, where Tristan is just driving at the moment.
Well, we are back in the Mara and we're slowly bumbling down the hill at the moment, just taking it all in. It's such a beautiful morning. I mean, when you come to work and this is what you're greeted with to start your day, is quite special, isn't it? You've got this kind of orange belt, mist that's down below, so it really is absolutely beautiful, and hopefully we'll be able to get a sighting to match. But if we don't, well, yesterday we got spoiled so much that I suppose we can't really be too sort of unhappy if we don't get much this morning. The Mara gave us a lot yesterday. We had the most epic lion sighting to start with storm and rainbows and all of that, and then we ended up with the pangolin towards the end with the lions, which was cool. So Lara Moore, you want to know how our pangolin, how it ended up and what's kind of happened after we went off air. So we did that little extra broadcast when the show finished, and then the little pangolin kind of woke up a little bit, looked around, and then it started to spit with rain and it just curled back up into a little ball and just sort of, I think it was over it, just didn't feel like getting wet, and so it kind of curled back up. And we decided, you know, we had been there for quite some time by then, we'd been there for over an hour, and we thought, you know, probably better that we just let this little pangolin have some time to itself, and hopefully it then unraveled and kind of moved off and went and did its own thing. Now I was thinking on the off chance that it might still be around to go past there this morning, but the problem is on the way back when we left that pangolin, that road with that rain had become an absolute nightmare, and we slipped and slided and almost got stuck trying to get through there. So I don't think it's even a viable option to try and negotiate that road until the sun has been out for a good hour or two, in which case it's probably going to be too late anyway. So which is a bit of a shame, because I would have liked to go back there, but I'm 99% sure it unraveled, realized nobody was there, and then moved off. But it's such a cool little sighting, and it was amazing to kind of spend time with the pangolin again. It's been a while for me. The last one I saw was in Christmas time 2016. So it's been 2 years since I've seen a pangolin, which is very unusual, because I've been fortunate before that I had seen a pangolin every year that I'd guided. So, you know, it was last year was not a good year then. Ooh, child of the universe. It depends where you are. I mean, for me in the Sabi Sands, probably the rarest would be, there's two. There would be sable antelope or caracal. Both of those, I haven't seen a caracal in the Sabi Sands. I've been fortunate to have seen a sable in the Sabi Sands, but it's just one. In fact, there was one actually at Nkoro the other day, which is quite cool. But those would be the two kind of rare ones. Caracal have been seen, but it's just very more polecats than I've seen caracal, which is pretty crazy. I've never seen a caracal actually in the Sabi Sands, which is a sore point, but we will leave it at that. And then here in the Mara, probably the rangers were telling me the other day, and I didn't actually know this, I didn't realize they occurred here, but the guys said that they see striped hyena here, which is quite something. They said to me it's the small hyena that's fluffy and got stripes on the side, so I assume it's a striped hyena or an aardwolf, one of the two, but I'm not sure which one. They weren't really sure of the name of it, and they said they've seen it at Serena Airstrip before, and they've seen it close to Governors, so that would probably be really high up on the list for this particular area. What else would be a really tough thing for the Mara? Wild dogs, which, well, you saw the other day, that would be a special one. There's probably all kinds of little things as well, so probably some sorts of mice or rats or gerbils or shrews that are incredibly rare but do get here. So it depends where you are in Africa. Each area has got its own things, and it's quite funny because if you think of the Mara system, there's certain birds here that are incredibly rare in South Africa but are common here, and then vice versa. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's always area dependent as to what is the rarest animals after kind of pangolins for us to see. In terms of numbers, you know, there's many animals out there that are in far worse shape than what the pangolins are in terms of numbers of the animals actually out there. It's just that the pangolins are being persecuted at a rate more than any of the others, and that's what makes them so special, and the fact that people don't really know about them. So when we think about things like this elephant or rhino or wild dog or cheetah or what else is in, I mean, let's think of rare animals. Wild dogs are probably a really good one, actually. You know, people know about them, people are aware of them, people kind of have some sort of idea, but a pangolin, most people have no idea that creature even exists, and if they do, they think it's an armadillo, which is obviously a big fail because the armadillo are not in the same kind of bracket at all in terms of rarity. And so that's why, you know, pangolins need a bit of attention. So they might not be the lowest number animal, but they certainly are rare and really not very well known in terms of being studied or people actually seeing many sightings of them. What is abundantly clear with pangolins is that people have actually seen them a lot more than we know. It's just that it's an animal that before kind of social media times, people would say, I saw a pangolin, and then it would be like, okay, but there was never really images or people posting of it. Now whenever a pangolin is seen, you know, you're starting to see pictures of it, and then you can start sort of using citizen science in some respects to try and start working out pangolin numbers in certain areas. But the one thing I'm yet to see, which I almost saw last year. So last year we used to traverse cheetah plains, and then obviously that all kind of finished and we didn't, and it was about 2 weeks after we stopped driving on cheetah plains that they found on cheetah plains a pangolin and a tiny little pup on its back. Now that's the one thing that I really want to see, is a little baby pangolin, because that thing must be super cute. I saw photos of how small it was. I mean, it couldn't have been bigger than a sort of size 10 shoe. So that would give you an idea of how small this little one was. A super cute little pup that was riding around on mom's back, which is very cool. So hopefully one day that's the next sighting for me for a pangolin. Can I find a baby pangolin today, Kirsty? We certainly can try. Wouldn't that be cool, a little baby moving around? Now last night I have no idea if it was a male or female. It never unraveled far enough to be able to know if it was a little boy or a girl, so I'm not sure. Maybe that one does have a little one, and we could maybe find it again. One thing about pangolins is they are fairly territorial. They do move around in a similar area. The pangolins that I've seen in the past sometimes I've seen the same pangolin for 2-3 days in a row in the same place, and there's a pangolin on Simambili where it's seen regularly. In fact, it gets seen, probably at one point it was being seen every week. So they are around, and maybe just working that area again, we might get lucky and see it once more. Good. Our Ellies are still feeding. They're slowly moving away from us. I haven't spoken about them at all or acknowledged them. Sorry, Ellies. But while they move off, let's send you back across to Sydney.
So the elephants are becoming very much silent these days because there is no need for them to push over the trees. The availability of leaves is too much. Look at that little one here. So the little one is not alone at the moment. Some of the elephants are right behind. It's quite a very small head, and this very big one here nearby has got a lovely tail, which is reminding me of the lioness kinky tail. Look at that. So you can see that the tail is not straight. So elephants, when they're walking, you don't hear any sound. They've got kind of a shock absorbers here on their legs. Even when running, you're not going to hear any sound at all. So the interesting part again about elephant is that they cannot jump. Elephants, you can trap them from a fence which is just about 2 meters high. Electrified fence can stop these big animals. So unfortunately, due to their big body weight, which can weigh up to 5,000 kilograms, they cannot jump. So now that the elephants are heading much more towards the thick bushes, we are going to carry on much more towards the cheetah cat line, because when still early in the morning is when the cats are still moving very fast. So I am going to leave this elephant now and see if we can go to that side. Otherwise, we might miss the opportunity to see any of the cats. So these elephants were in the very same area yesterday afternoon, so they are not walking long distances. So now let's cross over to James, who is also about to begin with his drive.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this end of the Sunrise Safari on the 17th, it is, of December 2018. Lovely to have you with us. My name is James Hendry. On camera today is batters. There we are. You saw that? Batters that thumb was supposed to come with my sound effect. Did you not? You didn't get that, did you? Okay. Please ask us questions, of course. #SafariLive on Twitter or the YouTube chat stream. You've been told that 3 times now. It should be very clear. We are going to look for leopards, obviously. This is what we want to see. Many leopards all the time. I'm not really sure where to begin. Don't know where Tandi is. Tlalamba, most likely on Torchwood. We can't go there today. And Tingana, perhaps heading northeast into Buffelshoek yesterday evening. So I guess it will be Horsana that we seek out. He seems to be trailing his dad, so maybe we'll head off towards Buffelshoek Waterhole, which is the northeastern corner of Djuma, and perhaps one or both of them will pitch up there. Obviously, anything else that we try and find, we will show you. Well, anything else that we do find, we will show you. And that is the general plan for the morning. The birding has been particularly good of late, and in fact, interestingly, the mating tortoises have been very common of late. I've seen 4 pairs of mating tortoises in the last 2 days. The last one was just around here. I'm not sure how long they mate for. So let's keep an eye out for them. The romance is heavy in the air for the Speaks hinged tortoise specifically, but I have seen 1 pair of leopard tortoises as well. One of them came to investigate a car yesterday as well. We were parked out on quarantine clearings and this thing came walking towards us with a sort of lascivious look in its eye. Child of the universe, you want to know what I thought of Tristan's pangolin? Well, I thought it was a pretty good-looking pangolin. I thought it not particularly brave pangolin. It spent a lot of time huddled in a small ball. I thought that it resembled most closely a pill millipede. But I would have given that pangolin, as pangolins go, about a 6 out of 10 for its performance, I think, child of the... You'll probably ask jealous of the fact that Tristan spent about 2 hours with the pangolin. Yes, I am. I think it was wonderful. And how very special that it managed to survive the attentions of the lions, who seem to be unaware that it is a critically endangered creature, of course. Very nasty of them to try and eat it. I'm, of course, being facetious. It's not nasty of them at all. Okay, we have got absolutely nothing biologically of interest to show you right now. Tristan, however, the pangolin man of Africa, the photographer, the magnificent, let's just put it like that, has got something in the mist for you.
We do. We have probably one of the more beautiful scenes that I've seen in quite some time. I was saying that this mist is going to be absolutely wonderful for very moody, interesting kind of sightings, and this is exactly what I was hoping for. They are a little bit further away than I was hoping, but you can see the Ellies are just in the edge of that mist. The sun is slowly going to start rising in the background there, and this mist should start to turn a more kind of orange color. But isn't that spectacular? Absolutely beautiful. And it's one of the things about when you get weather like this in the Mara, it's to try and take advantage and get into the mist quite quickly, because you can get these incredible kind of views of animals that are moving slowly through it, and it just adds a whole different element to what it looks like. It just kind of gives it a different feel altogether. You don't feel like you're kind of in the Mara when it's misty like this and you've got these kind of grey ghosts that are shaping through it. And the other animal that's really nice to see in this would be something like a lion kind of walking along, especially if it's roaring and all that steam would be coming out of its mouth. That would be very cool. But Ellies work nicely because they dark in coloration, so they really do kind of contrast very nicely against the mist itself, and they kind of have this dark appearance against that really light, foggy sort of feel that you've got. So very pleasant. I mean, look at that. Isn't that special? It almost looks a bit dreamlike in many respects as they kind of move around. So there's mom and it looks like some of her older offspring and then the little baby. And you'll find with the Mara, a lot of the elephant groups are of this size. So 5, 6 birds. Sorry, I say birds because I just saw a hammock. 5 or 6 ellies together. But there'll be groups that'll be very close. And so what you probably find is that those are all little satellite groups, and they just move quite far because in this area they can see each other quite clearly, and then they'll just come together when they need to. But absolutely beautiful, especially when they put their trunk up like that. Isn't that nice? I think it's very cool. Another spoiling by the Mara. It must be honest, it is a place from a photographic camera kind of point of view. It's got to be one of the best places just because of its ability to provide such different scenes every single time. Now, Linda, I agree with you. I think giraffes in the mist would be quite something as well. I think they'd be very, very pretty. So we'll try and see if we can find some. Where we're heading is actually really good for giraffe. We're going to be taking the road that runs down towards the river, and it's a great place to find giraffe, hyenas, sometimes lions, even maybe a leopard. So it's a good place to have a little look and see. Maybe we'll get lucky with those animals as well as we kind of head that way. So we're going to head deep into the mist. Now, the bird that made me kind of call these elephants birds is walking along the road. It's one that is synonymous with early mornings in the Masai Mara. It's called a hamakop. You can hear it calling. Don't stop now. Oh, stop now. Now, these guys are pretty much everywhere. They are on the roads, and they'll go along looking at the puddles and trying to find any frogs. Exactly, it's charging. We're under threat, Manu. Hang on. It's gathering speed. Here it comes. Brace oneself for impact. Oh, it's decided to turn off at the last second. We got lucky, Manu. No, it's now coming back again. Now, it will be looking for all kinds of frogs and things that are being on the road. Hey, you decided to fly off, okay. It was a game, yes, the proverbial game of chicken, exactly, Kirsty. I always rely on Kirsty for an entertaining comment early in the morning. But what's interesting now is that it's funny because while we've been watching these ellies, the mist is actually settling even more. Look, they're disappearing from our view just because the mist is getting heavier while we've been watching them. So just now, they were very visible. They were easy to see. Now you can see they've kind of starting to almost be very tricky to actually see them as they move around through that misty sort of area. Amazing, eh? Very cool. It's amazing how quickly mist can drop. Kirsty is in her finest punny form this morning. She says they are now a mystery to us. Yes, you're another story, you know that. Kirsty's the best when it comes to puns and to witty little comments. I thoroughly enjoy when Kirsty's directing. Normally involves quite a few laughs as she lets us have all these kind of little puns and things. So that was a good one. I like that one, Kirst. Right, our ellies are going to disappear into that thicket, so we're going to leave them there. Let's see what else we can find. Very, very moody this morning. Like I say, it'll be nice to see something kind of emerging out of the mist straight at us down the road. That would be quite cool. Maybe something, a leopard would be nice, a big male leopard. That would be very cool. Now, James doesn't want to be left out of this morning's proceedings, and he's now trying to contribute to the drive with a bird that's actually, funny enough, loved to spend time with him.
Not sure that this bird loves the limelight, although it's certainly sitting like it likes the lamplight. There it is, sitting atop a large green thorn tree. And it is, of course, the African harrier hawk. It's got its little crest up because it's being bombed by forked-tailed drongos. There you see. So it's trying to look intimidating. And of course, I mean, drongos don't like any raptors, but they especially don't like these things because being, well, are they actually whole nesters? No, they're not. I mean, this is a kind of specialist in little chicks. So it'll actually eat nestlings and eggs. That's very interesting. Eggs and nestlings of birds. I didn't realize they ate eggs. Ranging in size from waxbills to herons. So, I mean, a waxbill is about 3 inches long, and a heron, a Goliath heron's about 4 feet tall when it's stretched. So that's quite a wide range. I just want to look quickly and see. Their faces do go red as opposed to yellow when they are in breeding plumage, but I think that crest is probably raised in alarm. Let's see if I can find something out. Justin, I would say that this bird has done very little interesting today, and that's simply because it's still early in the day. It does soar to a certain extent, but it actually usually just flies from tree to tree, nesting site to nesting site. So I suspect that it hasn't gone hunting yet, and I suspect that because we know that there has been a nest of the African harrier hawk in this tree, and I wonder if they aren't starting to breed here. Now, it does say that they can soar high and see prey from a great height, but it is a methodical inspector of crevices and holes. It look in the ground, in trees and that sort of thing. Not very nice if you happen to be a victim. Like most of these raptors, in fact most animals out here actually, but birds specifically, yes, it does have a specialization, and that is nestlings, for which it, of course, has the double-jointed intertarsus, basically means the ankle joint is able to bend both ways. But it will eat anything meaty. It will eat termites, it'll eat squirrels, if we can catch them, it'll eat lizards and eggs. Agamas, apparently, rock agamas it quite likes. I still can't see why it should have the crest up, because normally the head is very small. It's quite interesting as I sort of scroll through this app of mine. They copulate throughout the incubation period. Isn't that interesting? So even once the eggs have been laid, so copulation occurs. Now that is fascinating to me, because what it tells me is that it's probably like they are monogamous. It's probably like that so that the male hangs around. They're highly territorial, and the mating probably continues to happen because the female needs the male to hang around. She doesn't want him to go philandering. And I suspect that's why it happens there. Eventually the drongo has succeeded. Chase him away. Very interesting. Thank you, Craig. Well done. Your first bird sighting of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you? Craig says it was utterly great. Hello, Snazzy. Do all birds understand other birds? No, I don't think they do necessarily. I think that the sentiment probably is quite widely understood. For example, the alarm calls of different birds, I'm sure, are understood as such by other birds. So when a rattling testicular starts shouting its head off, I'm pretty sure that other birds that are not rattling testiculars realize that it's an alarm call, and they look that way. Certainly that happens with the mammals. It happens interclass, if you like. So mammals will look to birds that are alarm calling. but I don't think that there are always complete understanding between species. All right, let's go across to Tristan, where it seems that the morning is a little bit brighter than it is here, and I'm sure that he is bringing his phenomenal photographic skills to bear on the sun.
Well, as you can see, the sun is slowly starting to come up above the horizon, and we've kind of tried to use a bit of a tree just for some dramatic effect, and so you can actually see the movement of the sun coming up, and it should provide the most beautiful kind of scenery going forward, because as that sun gets up, it should highlight all this mist. Obviously the mist will disappear quite fast, but it should highlight the mist quite nicely, and we should get a really beautiful color kind of developing. So as you come out, you'll see that there's this beautiful tree that the sun is going to rise through, and then as we come back, you'll see that it starts to get misty and then opens out into some plains of East Africa. Isn't that beautiful? Now I believe a lot of you are saying, wow, yes, Manu has once again done a sterling effort of capturing a rather beautiful scene. So that's kind of how we're spending our morning, watching the sunrise. It's a nice thing to know that most days we're up, we get to watch the sun coming up and rising. It's always a wonderful time of the day to be awake, particularly out here in the bush. And if you want to kind of spend the best time of the day, this is one of them. So now, and obviously sunset is the best time to be out in the bush. I know getting up early can be difficult for some of you, but it's worth it, I can assure you. Now a lot of you are saying it's a little bit like the Lion King. It is, isn't it? I just like how it's kind of going to go, and Manu, actually let me get you slightly forward, because what's going to happen is that sun is going to go into the little gap of the tree. If we just go there we go. So you'll see the sun will just go through the gap in the branches and kind of be in between the tree itself. Absolutely beautiful. I actually think it's a good time just to sit quietly, and you guys can maybe hear some of the sounds that we hear in the Mara. Lots of little birds chirping. You'll hear probably a few birds calling. There was also a frog calling. It sounded like a snoring puddle frog that was calling just now as well. So quite a bit of kind of interesting sounds. Unfortunately there's now a car coming, that's why I ruined our silence, because the car is about to ruin our silence as well as it comes along, one of the ranger vehicles. But wow, what a beautiful, beautiful scene that is, that's for sure. Manu's done a sterling effort to be able to bring it to all of you. The problem is that I'm going to have to move at some point, because I'm in the middle of the road, which is going to ruin Manu's shot as he waits for the sun to come through the branches of that tree. I was hoping we were going to, also while we were off, maybe hear something like lions calling or something like that, but alas, there hasn't been anything really in the way of lions calling, so we're going to still carry on. I want to try to see if we can get something while we kind of move on and see if there's any sort of sign of anything that can be seen in this mist with that backdrop that we've got. That mist has gone perfect, little pinks and oranges. There's some ellies on the wrong side of the road, unfortunately. They needed to be on that side to have that kind of backlighting that we were looking for, but still a very pretty picture of the ellies on this side. I'll try and show you now. They got a beautiful backdrop of the escarpment with the mist up against it, which is quite nice. I just want to get round far enough quickly. Amazing how quickly this mist dissipates when that sun gets up. It just kind of backs off that much faster. I think there is probably very nice, Manu. What do you think? There we go. So that's what I was talking about when I was saying the escarpment in the background, ellies, mist, actually even a little bit of cloud cover in terms of some almost looks like cumulus clouds that are. So the Mara is really kind of showing off this morning, isn't it? I think so. It's got all its splendor out for all to see today. Costa, definitely not South Africa. It's not the national animal. Manu, Kenya?
No,
What's the national animal?
it's lion.
Lion is the national animal in Kenya. So definitely not South Africa, and definitely not Kenya. So no. I actually am trying to think where it would be the national animal. I'm actually not sure, to be honest. This is where we need Brent, because Brent has a proverbial chest, a cavernous chest of information when it comes to these kind of things. He always likes these kind of bits of sort of little tidbits of information that are to do with where things are and history and national animals and those kind of things. So he would be a good one, probably. Now, Kirsty's saying that India has the Indian elephant as the national heritage animal, so they would, but is anybody in Africa, Kirst? Do you know? I don't think so. I mean, elephants are revered throughout a lot of the African sort of kingdoms, and a lot of the cultures have a lot going on when it comes to Ellies, but I don't know of anybody actually having it as their national animal. I need to think about that a little bit. But either way, it doesn't matter if either of them are national animals. These two are providing a lot of splendor against that backdrop. If you ask me, I think that is one of the more beautiful scenes we've had in quite some time. You can see the dead tree. There's those big clouds I was talking about. And then that mist, the way it's just kind of ebbing along the sort of escarpment with the Ellies in the foreground is absolutely beautiful. It looks a lot like the Ngorongoro crater when you see it like this. The crater often gets this kind of feel to it as well. So very, very pretty. And Amboseli too, when close to Kilimanjaro, you get that same kind of appearance. Yes, Botswana's national animal is the zebra. Yes, I do know that. Zimbabwe? Not sure. I don't think any of the countries that I can think of has the elephant as the national animal. It's like I say, certain tribes, yes, but not countries. Zimbabwe is the sable. I wonder. I'm not sure, if to be honest with you, that there is an African country that has a national animal that's the elephant. Which is interesting, you would think, given how kind of powerful and the symbolism of an Ellie, that lots of people would want to have Ellies as their national animal, but for some reason, apparently not. Which is interesting to me. I would have thought differently, but you learn things every day, which is good. Very, very peaceful, isn't it? Best part about it is it's just prior to the gate opening, so nice and quiet out here, which is always pleasant as well. It's nice when it's quiet and you can kind of just listen and don't have to move around too much, and there's not too many vehicles. There we go, so there is one, and actually should have known that too, is the Ivory Coast. The elephant is the national animal, which we should have actually known, if I'm honest. That's naughty Tristan. But anyway, that is what it is. We figured it out eventually. Oof, that is beautiful. Big bull Ellies, mist, escarpment, dead tree, open plains, very special. Right, we're going to carry on. We're going to try to see if we can find something in the golden mist. While we do that, let's send you back across to Sydney, who's got another of the big iconic animals of Africa.
So you can see that I've got those very big and dark animals lying on the ground at the moment, which is very much rare to find them lying down by this time of the day, as normally now is when they are still having some grazing before they go to hide. But due to quite a lot of food availability, you can see the stomachs look big already. That is why maybe now they are resting at the moment. So the oxpeckers are also doing their job. These oxpeckers helps these buffaloes a lot because they can access a lot of inaccessible areas for them to clean themselves. This is quite a very small head. I'm only seeing four of them. Maybe they've just splitted from a very big head which is not far away from here, or they have been splitted by the predators last night. You will never know. You can see the red-billed oxpeckers there. So a small head like this must be led obviously by the one we are seeing now in front, who is a male. Males who are walking in front by the buffalo head, they are called pathfinders. So these pathfinders are the ones who are responsible for safety of the whole herd. And if you look at them, they are always looking much more healthier than the rest of the buffaloes in a herd. What makes them to grow healthy is that they are the first one to access the suitable and nutritious grass because they are walking in front. The other ones behind, they just feed on the leftovers of the pathfinders in front. So they are feeding on nutritious grass so that they can be able to grow big and defend their herd against the predators. Buffaloes are not territorial. They are just home ranges. They can just go anywhere and everywhere according to the food availability. So when it's very hot, you will see they also like to cover the body with quite a lot of mud. Same applies to the elephant, rhinos, and warthogs. Buffaloes also do the mud wallowing. It's a very peaceful animal. The most dangerous buffalo will be the darker boys. Darker boys are those ones who prefers mud bath. And the name darker boy derived from the mud, as darker, dark means mud. It's like a mud boy. Kathy, I'm not too sure at what age this horn starts to cave in. So, but normally when they're just about over a year is when you can see the horns like we're seeing on that one. Maybe when they're getting towards 2 years is when they will start showing the direction of caving in. Because normally a lot of animals, they start to cave the horns in when they're above 18 months. So now let's quickly go back to Tristan by the Masai Mara.
Well, we are back with us, and you can see it's a beautiful scene of impalas silhouetted against the misty kind of sunrise, and what we are getting is a very cool kind of view of impalas jumping a water channel, which is awesome. It's very cool. They kind of one by one are going across and jumping, and there you go. I hope you got that as it went over. Just the big male now that is left to do the same, and a hippo that's also in the background as well. Now come on, big boy. Now, I believe I'm winning the beauty shots today. We've done well, haven't we, Kirst? It's been a good morning for beauty shots. I think we've been fortunate in that it's been misty and also a little bit of sun as well. So we definitely have gotten lucky in that respect. And we've been spoiled. There's been animals to choose from. Look at that light that's kind of filtering in from the side that we've got as well with those impala herd that's around. And I believe there's really nice sounds that you guys are hearing as well, which is wonderful. So lots of sounds of froggies and birds and just the general kind of things that you can hear around this sort of section of the Mara. It's a part that you can probably hear hippos as well. It's a part that you often hear frogs in. It's the marshy kind of area up against the river, and I wanted to come here because the mist was settled in this area. It's such a pretty kind of place and great for sound and various other things, and impalas in the golden kind of morning light that's filtering through the trees. Very, very nice. Where did our hippo go though? Hippo disappeared quite fast. It wasn't really interested in what's going on. Oh, there's a black rhino. Look at that. Oh, it's disappearing. I think it's a black rhino. It looks like a black rhino. Bob, is this mist beneficial for predators? Somewhat, yes. It would have been nice if that black rhino was on the left, but it's on the right-hand side now. It's moved over. Yes, because it's difficult for prey animals to see what's going on. Now, we must have just missed him crossing the road. I was so busy watching impalas that I didn't see him crossing, but it would have been so spectacular with the kind of backlight. But anyway, it's walking through the grass there. You can see there's its head and its horns. How awesome is that? And it's a little calf as well. Just look at that, mom and calf. How special. Hey, little one. Yeah, it's a little baby. That's very cool. Now, unfortunately, it's probably why she moved so quickly, is that she's trying to get a little calf across the road and through this area. But very special to see these guys. Obviously, we hardly ever get to talk about them in Djuma, and so for me, it's exciting that we get to have these guys on camera, because much like the pangolin, and they're also very much threatened, as we know. I mean, we've spoken a lot about the threats that rhinos face and the fact that they are poached for their horns and various other things, particularly in southern Africa. It's a lot more of an issue than it is down here, or should I say up here in East Africa. Here the rhinos are actually doing quite well. They're not being poached nearly as much as what we see in southern Africa. But it's such an incredible animal, and you can see that this little calf is kind of following mom, which dispels the sort of myth that you often hear about these white and black rhinos, where generally what they will say is that, I suppose it actually doesn't dispel it, it's sort of supports it, should I say. I don't know why I said dispels it, but it generally supports what they say. They say that generally white rhinos will be in front of the mother when it's a calf, whereas black rhinos will be behind. And the theory behind it is that generally white rhinos are moving around in more grassland areas, and therefore the little baby can be in front and the mother can protect it from the back, but also see over the top of it and see any threats that potentially could be in front of where it is. On converse to that, the black rhino spends more time thickets and areas where it's quite dense, and therefore it forges a path for the calf, makes sure it's a safe path that it can run in, and then the calf follows behind. So that's the kind of general sort of consensus that there is. I suppose that's about what we're seeing here, is this little one following its mom. Now, in terms of how old it is, quite old already. I would say that that's easily 4 or 5 years old. As you can see, its back is halfway up on mom, which is pretty cool. Now, they look like just termite mounds from there, and very kind of cool to see. Paula, how long do they stay with their mums? Normally, depends. I mean, I've seen calves that have stayed a little bit longer than others, but generally you start to see them kind of distributing out at about 5, 6. They'll start to move off from white rhinos. Black rhinos probably a little bit earlier than that. Probably about 5 would be about right, that you start to see them kind of slowly kind of moving, and then they spend a bit of time close. Mom will then probably get a new calf, and then that one is time to kind of move off and go and do its own thing. There you can see the black rhino typically browsing and kind of using that prehensile lip to get all kinds of food items that it can. This is so cool. In fact, actually, black rhinos might be a little bit longer. Now that I think about it, you might find that they actually go until sort of 7, 8 for them to, before they start to kind of distribute off. Carol, not every single rhino will be ear notch for identification. So you're asking what age does it happen? Yeah, there's no age really for it. Here in the Mara, I know they do notch some of the ears and in certain parks, but they might leave these ones completely alone and let it just carry on and do its thing. But normally what they do is they notch when an animal sets up a territorial area. So you'll find when You get males or females together, or in this, and they distribute from their sort of moms. They still got to set up an area. Once they've set up an area, then they're generally adults, and they will then be notched from there, because they can then apply a kind of area to a specific animal, and then if it moves, it's okay. But it's normally when they are a little bit older, or when they're still teenagers, but they're definitely not at this age. This is still too young for that one. But very cool to see. I'm sad we didn't see it earlier. The impalas jumping the water channel got me, unfortunately. Otherwise, I think we would have got them walking with this beautiful backlight, which would have been absolutely spectacular coming through the mist. It would have been very, very nice. It's exactly what we were kind of hoping for. Now, up in front is some waterbuck. There's a certain section here, so Kurt, don't go anywhere just yet, because we're going to get to it now, that Manu and I wanted to be here first thing in the morning, because it's got a lot of water on it, and there's the reflection should be absolutely beautiful with this light. Sorry, waterbuck, I know I'm waking you guys up. I do apologize. I just want to come past because I want to get to a certain place. Sorry. Okay, all good. So they've forgiven us already, which is good news. Now it's just beyond this bend here. There's a section that we were looking for, so hopefully it's still got water in it. I would imagine after yesterday's rain that it should, because the rain actually came down towards this sort of area. So Douglas, how fast can a rhino go when it's at full gallop? Most rhinos will, obviously terrain depending, will probably reach about 18 miles an hour at the most. 18 to 20 miles most, not very much faster than that. So what's that, 35 kilometers an hour, but that would be optimal conditions. Most of them probably don't even get close to 30, so it just depends on the terrain and conditions that you have. This area that I wanted, this section is dry, so let's just check the next one. There should be a big marsh that should kind of reflect beautiful kind of lights, especially if there's not too many clouds today. It would have been nice if there had been some clouds. Might be a bit bright already. I think it would have been good a little bit earlier, but let's see what we get. So here's the one section here, but it's not quite what I was hoping for, unfortunately. I think we got you a little bit late, but there's all the water that we were talking about, and we were hoping that would get this kind of very orangey pink sort of reflection if we were here at the right time. But it is pretty. You can see how flooded it is, and how marshy it's become in this particular section. Isn't that beautiful? Lots of nice things to hear as well. Froggies and birds. Mara is showing off this morning. Wood doves, hippos. Ah, very, very, very beautiful, isn't it? Nice. Alright, so there's a car that's coming, so I'm going to have to move. The good news, you say that's a nice marsh. Thank you. I think so too. I think it's a beautiful marsh. Perfect for things like waterbuck and buffalo and elephants to come and play around in, and herons as well, and bitterns, and so I'm sure they think it's a nice marsh too. It's a wonderful marsh. It's got everything that everybody wants. I see a car stopped up ahead of us here, so I'm going to go have a little investigation, but while I do that, let's send you across to Sydney. Who's at the Philslip Dam?
We are just here by the Buffersook. You can see there's quite a lot of birds here flying around, and a lot of them as well on the ground. The Egyptian goose are so happy and chasing each other. Some are playing around their nests. You can hear that not only the Egyptian goose are here, there are some of the big animals who are also competing with their calls at the moment. Not only the geese are making noise here, but the cheetah water hole this morning. It's quite a lot of hippopotamus together. A group of the hippopotamus together like this, we call it a school of the hippopotamus. So I'm sure the hippopotamus must be very happy with this kind of the overcast weather this morning. So I have seen quite a lot of evidence this morning that hippopotamus has been traveling long distances. So it means they were looking for the grasses growing, concentrating much more by the fire break. So fire breaks are those areas that were used in order to prevent felt fires. So it's the areas that are growing back with quite a lot of nutrients. Grass has been stimulated there, and hippopotamus likes those open areas. So this Snappy, I don't think it's going to be very easy this morning to see the hippopotamus, the babies and the adults outside, because the weather is nice. Normally they go in and out trying to lower the body temperatures, so they can be able to submerge there for about 5 to 6.5 minutes and come out for breathing. It's quite a very big animal, but when it's underwater, it's difficult to judge the body size. These animals can weigh up to 1,500, 1,700 kilograms. That is quite a lot. So when it's in there, it doesn't look having a big mouth. So now let's go to James, who is having a lovely vulture at the moment.
Well, I'm trying to have a lovely vulture here. There is a white-backed vulture. I'm feeling very dejected, I must confess to you. We have found nothing in the way of large animals that we were hoping to. We went to the hyena den, there was nothing there. All I get in my ear constantly all morning long is how awesome the Mara looks and how many sightings Tristan's having. Sydney's had buffalo and elephants already. Now he's got hippos playing and cavorting, and I've got an animal that looks for all the world like it lives in the most depressing place in the world. Look at it. Here is the white-backed vulture. I don't suppose it is actually depressed at all. Kirsten says it looks like me. Well, that's just really improved my morning. Thank you, that's wonderful. Apparently I look like a white-backed vulture, everybody. How very sad. I think that this is the juvenile white-backed vulture that has left the nest. Now, we know that our little white-backed vulture, who we called, what did we call her? Veronica or something like that. We gave her a name that was mixed, I think, or I would just call her Veronica for now. She was born in July, if I remember correctly, and should therefore have fledged, I think, 90 days after that. Actually, I can't remember it, so I'm just going to quickly check here. 140 days, 108 to 140 days, divide by 30 gives you round about 4 months or so. July, August, September, October, November. Yep, so I think that this is the youngster. Just fledged. And if we look with the binoculars, we can see that it does have a sort of juvenile look to it. It's quite scruffy. Very white head. It is also perfecting what might be termed the teenager's slouch or sulking posture. Yes, it's almost certainly a juvenile, actually. It looks exactly like when you tell a 15-year-old that they may not go out for the evening. or that their cell phone contract is no longer going to be available to them, or that they should go and do their homework or tidy their room. Yeah, no, that's exactly what we have there. I wonder what a 15-year-old would say. Of course, I do not have a 15-year-old of my own, so I wonder what those of you who do can perhaps try this. And next time you get that sort of look from your 15-year-old, say, don't give me that vulturine look. Get on with whatever it is that I've told you to get on with. I think I shall tell my nephews not to give me a vulturine look. Although at ages 5 and 4, I think possibly it's a little early for me to be telling them that. I was just reading about also, come to think of teenagers, you know, they're not all entirely... Thank you, Bob. You said I'd make a great headmaster. Well, I'm not sure the kids would agree. Not all kids, of course, find themselves in that what we call chrysalis phase, if you like, where they're just trying to figure themselves out. There's that 15-year-old Swedish or Norwegian girl who's making, she and her cohort are making waves on the global climate change front, interestingly, taking on world so-called leaders and telling them what for, basically, for not doing anything about the problem. So it's not like I have no respect for teenagers at all. I was one at one stage. I looked more like this guy. I didn't affect climate change at all when I was 15. In fact, I had a very similar problem to this guy. You see how he's trying to make his feathers lie down. I used to have to do the same thing with a piece of hair when I had it that used to stick up on the back of my head. It made me feel embarrassed. Child of the universe, no, I haven't taken my nephews on safari yet, for two reasons. One is that their parents are, let's say, terrified of not necessarily the bush. They take their kids to the mountains quite a lot, but they're not prepared to come into any malaria area just yet, because the little ones are under 6, which is perfectly reasonable, of course, and so I haven't managed to get them down into this area. That's the one reason. The other reason is that we can't really bring kids into this area. Well, you know, we don't have the facilities to look after kids here, but I could take them on safari somewhere else, and I hope to do that one day. Some starlings have joined the sulking teenage vulture. Birchall's starlings, I think, with their long tails. That is the quickest way to identify them at this distance. Yes, they are. One is bigger than the other. Perhaps a male and a female looking for a nesting site. I wouldn't nest there next to the sulky vulture. The atmosphere is not conducive to raising a child. Yeah, that's definitely the new vulture. In fact, as vultures go, its feathers are pretty well preened, I think, and they look new, almost, which of course they are. The vulture is now looking at the starlings with disdain. Good. Well, I think we've milked the sighting to the nth degree there, Craig. I think we should press on. Jocelyn, I don't know that it's true that vultures are some of the cleanest scavengers. They certainly do go down to the water and clean themselves off. And I was actually talking about this with Kholi the other day, because one of the trainees, of course, you know, they obviously don't have an enormous amount of experience, but they've got quite a lot of book knowledge now, and we were discussing it. And one of them said to Kholi, they're supposed to be so clean, you know, because they go and they clean themselves and they go and wash. And Kholi said, have you ever smelt a vulture? And obviously, I think it was Pat said no, he'd never smelt a vulture. And Kholi has smelt a vulture because, of course, he's lived in the bush his whole life. and he said, you will not believe how bad they smell. So, yes, I too was under the impression that vultures were tremendously clean. Oli indicates that perhaps they do clean much of the muck off themselves, but that obviously there's some residual that makes them smell dreadful. And he's just before you think that he's been around a lot of dead vultures that he's caught, he spent some time in rehabilitation centres where he says they're just really nasty smelling things, much more so than other birds. Right, I believe that the amazing Tristan has managed to now conjure up a scene of mist, sun, grass, hippopotamus and golden light, all just for you.
Now, James, no need to be like that. We have just been spoiled because the Mara has given us lots of nice things to be able to look at this morning, and I've done nothing really, to be honest. I've just parked and Manu's done all the hard work, but you can see we're watching a hippo that's just slowly kind of moving towards us, so we're trying to be patient in the hope that our hippo will come a little bit closer than what it is. It's slowly kind of feeding its way in amongst a whole bunch of waterbuck to try and get through, and then it's going to probably cross the road in front and go towards the river. So there you go, still a bit of mist hanging about in the background. And the waterbuck male, that's give you an idea of the size of a waterbuck given the size of the hippo. Now this particular hippo is not a monstrous individual, but it's certainly not small, and so gives you a good comparison of how big waterbuck really are. We often talk about them being a bulky antelope, but you can see there the one kind of in the background that while the hippo is much larger, the waterbuck does stand quite tall and is quite bulky for the antelope species. It does have a fair amount of sort of thickness to it, if that's the right word. But our hippo is now ambling closer, which is good news. You can see basically what it does is as it walks, it every now and then will just open its mouth and just chomp down on some of the grasses that are in its way, and that's how they feed, and they just do that all night, going from side to side, picking up a whole bunch of food as they do it. And then when they decide, nope, it's starting to get too hot, which is probably what's happening now, you'll find that this guy is now going to plod his way towards the Mara River, which is really not far from where we're sitting. But you can see quite a few little scars on the side of his body. I say it looks like a boy. It's always tricky with hippos. But lots of cuts and scrapes, and that's typical for hippos. There's a giraffe in the background as well. There's so many things that are... I said we'd see giraffe in this area, we just didn't quite get the timing right in terms of actually seeing them when the mist was still down, but they are around, and it's typical of hippos to have lots of scars, particularly when you've had a time where the river's been very low. That's because, there will be a lot of competition around the pools and those kind of things, and so you often see a lot of scrapes. Now, Carol, you say it looks like he's sleepwalking. It does, doesn't it? It almost looks like he's just plodding along and his eyes are almost closed as he goes, but he's most definitely very awake. You can see their eyes are open a little bit more. So just checking, seeing if everything's okay and that we're not a threat, and so we're not going to move from where we are now. He should cross, like I say, quite close in front of us, which will be quite nice. And you can see his nose is all wet from walking through the grass. Shame, their little noses must get cold. I suppose not a little nose, if we look at the size of those nostrils. Dash, yes, hippos have charged vehicles many times and have done some serious damage, so they can do, but the trick is with a hippo is not to get in its direct path. So while this one looks like it's walking towards us, it's actually not. It's going to kind of angle past us, and so as long as you're not in its direct path and you're not cutting off a point where it feels like it can get to safety, generally they're okay. They actually won't be too sort of bad and will leave you alone. The other time that you need to be very careful is if there's lions that are either crazy or stupid enough to jump on the back of one of these guys. Then when they just panic and run, then you can be in their way. But there's been lots and lots of incidents with these guys hitting cars. It's normally to do with the fact that they've been caught on something like a bridge or something where they can't actually get away, and their only other response is to fight. It's like that for most animals. It's fight or flight syndromes. So they'll weigh up their options, and if they feel like they've got nowhere else to go, then they'll try and defend themselves. So they can charge a vehicle, but it would be very seldom. You can see he's a little bit aware, and he's now just adjusted his course slightly. Rather than to come straight at us, he's going to just go a little bit further away and then cross the road. So Bob, I mean, their hearing is probably not their main sense. Their eyes are a lot bigger. And I love it when they flick their ears like that. But their small ears won't allow them to hear very well in comparison to a lot of the other animals out here. But they'll hear fine. I mean, they're able to still communicate with each other and vocalize, which means that they will hear that. But in terms of their environment and what they're actually going to utilize, I think their eyes and their nostrils are probably two of their biggest senses. With their you're going to go to the toilet as well. Now you can see what's interesting with that is definitely a boy, firstly. Secondly, not a territorial boy, because he is not spraying his dung as he's walking. He almost had to engage low range there because his tummy almost got stuck on the verge. But they're not spraying his dung by flicking his tail, which generally you'll see from territorial males, so maybe a sub-adult, but that gives you an idea of how rotund a hippo is. Lots of scars on his bottom as well. Have you been getting beaten up by the resident males? He's got a really bad one on his back as well. Very cool, exactly. He goes to getting spoiled. And he's super chilled as well. He's kind of giving us all sides as he's walking along towards the river. And you can see he's now across the road, which means that for him, he's probably we're probably a little bit further away than the closest point, but he's got, I would say, maybe another 500 meters until he'll hit the river. There you can see the forest in the background, so he's got to get into that. And then the river just lies basically where that forest is. But he's kind of... compression of the lens gives you an idea that that's a lot closer than what it probably is. He's heading more towards the left, and you can see the forest kind of goes away there. So Anna Marie, I mean, obviously at night they spend hours away from their water source, so this hippo has been almost 12 hours probably since it's been out during the course of the night, but it's very dependent on whether there's rain that's happening, whether they can find smaller water sources that allow them to sit in mud areas. What are the temperatures? So the amount of time that they can be away from water is too variable. It's so dependent on climatic conditions and or weather conditions and various other aspects that you can't really put a time frame on it. But suffices to say, if they don't get water onto their skin, which obviously is part of the reason why they go into water, is just to stay hydrated, then their skin starts to dry out, even though they produce that blood sweat, and they then dehydrate very, very fast. And so a hippo without water for 2 days is starting to look very, very poorly and in bad shape. And generally what you'll find then is if there's very little water, they try and get into any mud that they can find and try and coat themselves in mud. But yeah, 2 days without water and these guys are starting to not look very well at all. They start to look a little bit out of sorts, and by sort of a week away from water they're really not doing well at all. Anyway, that one's disappearing. He's going to go far off, but that was a very, very, very good view. The hippo, I think so. Very nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to head to the Mara River, because I need to just do a quick little sort of off-air shoot of some stuff at the river. So that's going to be our plan. But before we go to the river, we're going to do a little loop of that area where we saw the mating lions, and then we'll head to the river across, and hopefully we'll get something as we go along. But in the meantime, let's send you back across to Headmaster James and see whether or not he's still sulking or if he's gotten over it by now.
No, my sulking's got worse now, because one of you has called me Bitter Betty, which I think was very unfortunate. Bitter Betty, the headmaster, is now driving along. At least he's got a bit of sunshine on him. It seems that the clouds are burning away. The magnificent Tristan is just doing a little loop around to some mating lions before taking you down to the river. I am looking at bushes. Anyway, Bitter Betty the headmaster is doing his best. We are on the western side now of Djuma, and we're trying to find ourselves the first good sighting of Hukumuri or Shidulu in the last little while. Paula, when I first went on my first safari was about, I was 6, I think, 6 or so. I was 5. We travelled to the Kruger National Park, as families do in South Africa, in my father's car, my brother and I in the back seat, mum and dad in the front. And it didn't begin well. It began inauspiciously with me vomiting on the side of the road, I think somewhere on the way to Skukuza or Satara, I forget where exactly. And that situation persisted for the 4 days that we were there in the bush. I had a dreadful stomach malady, and I was introduced, in fact, to that lamentable method of medicinal administration, the suppository. Now I know that that's probably a little bit graphic for this kind of the morning, but that is my lasting and abiding memory of my first safari, and so it wasn't a good experience all in all for the family, or for me, or for my brother. And thereafter, it really wasn't it was a long time before we went again. I don't think we ever went to the Kruger as a family until about 3 years ago. That was the next time we went to the Kruger as a family, but we used to travel to the Pilansberg, which is just north of Johannesburg. We used to go there fairly frequently. Tristan Dix wants to know if this is why I walk the way I do. The last time I went on a walk, some of you accused me of walking like I look like I need to go to the loo, and I really think that that's unkind. I walk fairly normally, don't I, Craig? Craig is being very non-committal about this. No, Tristan, I walk completely normally. If there is a strangeness to my walk, it's born of a stiff lower back, I'm going to say that. Anyway, safari was not a big thing in the family, but going to natural places was quite a big thing. And that's what inspired my love of the wilderness, not so much safari, but just coming to live and be in beautiful places, be they the mountains or the sea or the bush, where I find myself living now, very luckily. Thank you for that question. It's always useful having questions like that when you can't find animals. I do like the grey clouds off to the west, though, that are being lit up by the beautiful, sunlight. Sarah almost redeemed herself and then put herself back in the dog box by saying, "I walk perfectly, Bitter Betty." Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. I hope you don't have anything to eat today. And now the abuse is just starting to flow. Lynn says I walk like the suppository never melted. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Lynn. That's wonderful. I'm not sure what I've done to incur all of your wrath, everybody, but whatever it is, I'm sorry. Thank you, Deja Vu. You say woe to me, but if it's any consolation, you noticed my haircut. Thank you. Thank you, Deja Vu. Let's just have a look. Wait, let me go back a little bit more. I just want to quickly have a look at these yellow flowers to see if there are any interesting creatures on them. Deja Vu, very kind to notice my haircut. You know, I put a great effort into my haircuts. This one had to be fixed, of course, because I missed patches. I'm always excited when these flowers come out, because they often have interesting beetles on them. I can hear a beetle flying around. It's decided that it's going to stay away from me because I walk in such a strange fashion. I'm just going to examine a few of them. Beetles keep flying away, but not from the flowers that I'm examining. No beetles so far. Maybe it's a little early in the season. No, a couple of ants. We don't want to show you more ants. No, fairly in keeping with the general luck of the day, really. I'm hoping it'll turn. We still have a good hour and a half or so to make my luck turn. Now I'm self-conscious about walking in front of all of you. Okay, now I'm told we're going to go back to the Masai Mara, to the amazing Tristan, and a majestic sighting, the most majestic sighting of impala.
Shame, poor James. He's been getting battered from all sides at this stage of the game, and he's almost like a balloon that's being deflated in the background there. He's kind of just going... all his air is being sucked out of him, and he's going to topple over at some point soon. But as you can see, we're with the Topi at the moment. The balloon is falling down and slowly kind of going to the ground. Those people have just had a flight over the Mara, which is very, very cool. And it is kind of just falling over at the moment, and there's a few little young Topi in the front. So poor James, don't be like the balloon. You'll be fine. You'll be able to stand up straight and be able to to survive the morning. Don't stress. But it is funny, as soon as he brought up the suppository story, that I knew from that moment that his bushwalk story was going to get brought up, and it was just going to all roll into one. So poor James actually brought that on himself this morning, but he has taken a bit of abuse, and that's the way it goes, James, unfortunately, is that these things happen. But what's been really nice is actually, let's get back to some animals. Let's stop giving James a hard time. Shame. He's got a haircut, which is exciting. So he's obviously looking quite spiffy with his haircuts, and I'm sure he's going to have a good leave at some point. But what is nice is that all the little Topis are out at the moment, so lots and lots of little baby Topis that are running around. And while a Topi is not a beautiful animal, it's not something I would describe as beautiful. It certainly will not meet the same standards as what the sunrise was this morning, but a little baby Topi is cute, let's be honest. It's a lot lighter in color, and there's something about the big awkward ears and long legs that gives them some semblance of cute factor. They're still not the cutest baby that there is out there. They look a little bit awkward with their funny little horns that come out, and like I say, their ears are quite pointy, but they are, at least they've got something about them that allows you to look at them a little bit more kind of with softer heart than what you would look at a adult Topi. That really is not a pretty animal at all. But what's interesting to me is that I would have thought that we would have seen a lot of kind of hunting of these baby Topi from the various predators, and we haven't. And not, given that, I suppose, that we haven't spent much time in areas with lots of Topi at the moment, maybe that's why I haven't been seeing it. But I would have thought things like leopard and cheetah and the lions would have been trying to take advantage of all these young babies. And there are a lot. Most of the Topi herds you find, you've got a lot of these little ones that are around, and you would think that they would form a huge diet. Now that the migration has left, they would be a perfect animal to hunt. But given that they are quite fast, maybe that's why it's not the case. Right, now our deflated balloon is down, but it sounds like James is trying to rise once again, and he is not a deflated balloon because he's found himself a bird of prey.
We have found a bird, and it's very close by, actually, which is unusual in that it's sitting on a tree. It's only about 20 meters away from us or so. Now, I suppose we can, in tribute to Brent Leo Smith, have a little quiz. You can tell me which bird you think it is. Remember, there are lots of brown eagles around at the moment. Your options are steppe, lesser spotted, tawny, Wahlbergs. That's probably about it, really. So you've got a 25% chance of taking a guess. This one I think is the easiest of those to identify. So you can tell me, #SafariLive, which one you think this is. While I tell you that I think it's just come off the ground. Yes, Jeremiah, it is an eagle, but which eagle do you suppose it is? Which of the four that I've just given you? And I wonder if it doesn't have, or hasn't been feeding on something on the ground. Tim and Indigo Girl say it's a tawny. Do we have any advances on tawny? I'm going to give you another 10 seconds. Tawny going once. Tawny going twice. David, you say Wahlbergs. Any votes for steppe or lesser spotted? Lots of tawny and Wahlbergs, no steppe. Okay, so what we're looking for here, obviously you lot are rather too experienced at doing this. What you're looking for is the ruffled or scruffy feathers and the very distinctly different coloured wings. You can see that they're very dark in comparison with the head. It is almost certainly a tawny eagle. You could possibly confuse, oh, that's wonderful, look at the starling and the eagle together. You could possibly confuse a tawny with a juvenile steppe. But if we look at the gape on that bird, you can see that it does not extend behind the middle of the eye, although it gets pretty close. But I'm 99.99% sure that that's a tawny eagle. Octogirl, they're probably very powerful, but they're not as powerful as some eagles. So when you say how powerful are their talons, I mean, I can't tell you what pounds per square inch or kilograms per square centimetre or millimetre they're able to exert with their talons. But I will tell you that I don't think they're as powerful as something like a martial eagle or a crowned eagle, of course, which has tremendously powerful talons. And that is because they are not normally known for killing their own prey. Well, they do kill their own prey, but they don't kill a lot of their own prey. And the prey that they do kill is relatively small. They are carrion eaters to a large extent. Let's check what the biggest prey they've been recorded killing is, and then I can give you some indication of how powerful I think their talons are. I mean, they must be pretty powerful. I doubt they're able to tickle very gently. So let's have a quick look at a detailed look at what they eat. Yes, I mean, the heading on the food and foraging in this app is predator, pirate and scavenger. But it is able to catch things in flight, like pigeons, kills flamingos in flight, so that's big. Competes with vultures and marabous, yes, we know that. Steals from other eagles, yep, we know that. Live caught prey includes mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish and insects. Monitor lizards. Monitor is a big prey. That's interesting, actually. Monitor lizards are a speciality of the marshal, which of course is a very big bird known for its extremely powerful talons. Yeah, it's mainly a scavenger though, really. But kills mammals up to 4 kilograms, including small warthogs, and antelope, including springbok and spring hares and genets. Okay, so I'm going to say it does probably have a fairly powerful set of talons, possibly not as strong as the marshals or the crowned, but pretty powerful. Look at those starlings watching it. Jade, I don't think... I mean, I think if it could catch those starlings, it would most certainly eat them. I don't think it's going to, though. I think the starling is a little bit wily. I'm not sure why they're choosing to sit with the eagle. The eagle looks a little suspicious, like it's wondering why both of them are sitting either side of it, sort of looking from one to the other. It's quite a pretty little sighting, that, though, isn't it? All right, let's move on from our towny eagle. Right, Tristan Dix, we're going to go back to in the Masai Mara. He doesn't have to wait at a sighting to show it to you or to have a second go, because he's always got something new.
Indeed, you are back with us with the two buffalo bulls that are having a little bit of a pushing contest that they seem to have now sorted out. They had their heads locked together for a little bit, and it was nothing too serious. It's more just kind of playing about, and the way that they often do things. The buffalo will, when they're together, will kind of put their heads and then they just force each other around a little bit, and it's just more practice than anything else. It's not exactly a full-on fight because there's really no females around. In saying that, though, the one time I had the most ridiculous sighting of a buffalo, I actually felt really bad for this buffalo. We were sitting at a water point. It was like a little muddy water hole. And funny enough, Ali was also there. She was guiding guests of her own. And we were sitting, and this buffalo, it was a hot afternoon, and this buffalo was sitting there, and it was ruminating, and it looked very relaxed, and the other buffalo around it were just kind of feeding, and everybody looked as though there was, typical afternoon with buffalo, not really much going on. They weren't up to too much. All of a sudden, though, this one buffalo just turned and ran and smashed into this other one that was wallowing. But when I say smashed into it, it hit it so hard that this poor buffalo ended up getting hit onto its back with its legs in the air, and all the rumen that it was chewing went flying out of its mouth. And I promise you, this poor thing got hit like it was being attacked by this other buffalo, and then the other buffalo just ran away. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen with a buffalo. But that other one just kind of lay there with its legs in the air for a second or two, thinking, what just happened? And then rolled back over and kind of looked around, and the other buffalo was gone. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But that poor buffalo, the sound that it made when that other one hit it, I'm surprised it didn't have proper injuries on it. But it was just, the most hilarious part about it was kind of, have you ever seen when a boxer gets hit and their sort of sweat sprays everywhere, or their gum guard comes out, mouth guard? It was like that. This poor thing had rumen spraying out, and it had this face of that it had just been kind of hit by Mike Tyson of buffalo. It was a weird sighting, but one that kind of happened. Now you can see these guys are being respectful. They're not being horrible to anybody. They're just kind of ambling over this grassy area. There you can see a topi that's coming in. Might be having a little drink. There's a few of these natural little kind of areas that are filled with water that these guys can drink from. And this particular area that we're in is exactly where we had those mating lions the other day. There's obviously no sign of them here, lots of other things milling about. But what's interesting about this section is the topi here seem to be, oh, there we go, mud for anybody's face? Facial, here we go. The topi seem to be very active here. They run around all over the place. A lot of the babies, it's like their little paddock where they stretch their legs. So they come here to do a bit of training early in the morning. It's like the topi track is what we should call it. And they all run around and flex and kind of do their thing, and then off they go and start feeding. But you come here sometimes and it's just topi running circles around this greenery for some reason. I don't know why. Now this one is probably going to shove its face into the mud once again. You often see this from topi, wildebeest. The preorbital gland that they've got allows them to do this, where they'll kind of mark territory in a way. They're also packing mud along their facial areas and their horns, which you see kudu dirt, nyala dirt. Here's some topi that are running. This is what I'm talking about. This is what you see, is that they run, oh, now they've stopped, but they run around like this, and they'll kind of trot and gallop and And then for seemingly no reason, sometimes they chase each other, sometimes it's just to run by themselves. There we go. There they go. Off and running. It seems as though maybe a bigger male chasing a younger male, but this is what goes on the whole morning here. They run around, you see, and then back they go. It's almost like exercise, and you can see that the gait that they've got very clearly as they do it is that rocking motion, which has been proven to be far more energy efficient than what the straight-backed animals are. Now this one is going to absolute town now. It's just stopping, having a serious facial going on. Watch this. This is cool. That's what happens when you get mud in your face. Can't really expect a different outcome, so not quite sure what the point of getting mud all over you is and then shaking it all off, but like I said, it's more to probably to mark a territory. The gland below the eye will be the one that will leave a scent down there, and you'll find these little areas wherever topi are, there's a little muddy section that they put their heads into, and they do this and kind of scrape and go crazy. Are you finished, or are you going to do it again for us? Come on. Are you shy now? Oh, it's almost like it got the little chills, and it was like, oh, let me just shake that off quickly. Funny animals, though, aren't they? Very odd-looking things. I think it's done with its mud slinging for now. But yes, they do. They run just like hyenas do. Essentially, they have the same shape, so much longer front legs than back legs. So hyenas, topi, hartebeest, tesserae, they all have that similar gait, and it's generally wildebeest. It's generally animals that move long distances that have this. It's a gait that allows them to just run and run and run and run and run without really having to stop. But they're still running around, those two, at the far distance. They're still kind of chasing each other and sort of having a bit of a gallop. And like I said, it's quite joyful to actually come here and watch, because this is what just happens for hours. You just watch topi running around and doing their thing. There comes another one. So it's just this constant kind of movement of topi, and I think what's happening is that they're all trying to set up their own little sections, and so when one male chases another one, he goes into another one section, and then he gets chased by that one, and then he has to go and do another kind of area, and so constantly there's this kind of movement of these two. Now if we watch this front one, which was just chased, so that one is now stopped. This front one is here standing, and here comes another one in the background that's going to come and, I think, chase this one off. So each one is trying to find its own little kind of area in order to establish itself, and there is this constant game of being chased around. It's very cool to watch. So there comes the one, and this poor one that was chased has now got topi coming from both sides. It's going to be surrounded soon. Let's see if it gets chased again. Lots of posturing in the way that they kind of walk with their heads up, show themselves. It's slowly getting closer, this one. And you can see that's a strut of an animal that is almost trying to show off in many respects. It's not got its head bowed low for feeding. Head is raised very, very high. It's trying to show off its horns a little bit, and kind of just displaying to the other one. Now, tail also out as well. There's often an indication that there is a display happening. What that display is anyone's guess. Now I wonder if this is a female that's maybe coming into estrus. Telling male and females apart is not easy, but the way that male has gone round the back, yep, I think she's in heat, and that's why he's kind of posturing. Maybe that's why we're seeing a lot of chasing that's going on. Interesting nonetheless, but like I say, it's a great place to come and spend a lot of time with these guys, and so if you want to see them running around, this is where you should come, because this is where they do run pretty much all day long. It's the most I've seen from topi in terms of activity is on this little open area. It's always like this. It doesn't matter the time of the year, you typically see them running around chasing each other like this. Very cool. Right, I think we need to start getting going and getting off towards the river. It was very pleasant though. It was very nice to sit here from our buffalo to our mudslinging topi and our... Now, sorry Chris, if you can just repeat the question. I got the name, But can you just repeat the question for me? Something about antelope? These cars are so noisy, sometimes it's difficult to actually hear this. Paula, because the reason why Santa Claus chose reindeer and not antelope is because Santa Claus lives in the North Pole, and so reindeer theoretically are supposed to be in those areas, and therefore they can deal with the cold weather. If you put a topi in the North Pole, it would probably fall over and die from exposure. So it's because the reindeers can deal with the cold weather, so that's why they were used for the sleigh. But that doesn't explain how the reindeer cope when they come to Africa, because how are they going to do a 40-degree day in Hoedspruit or in Djuma when they have come from the North Pole? There's a lot of things about Santa and his reindeer that need to be answered. Do you think maybe he should have had, I think he should have had a kind of local team wherever he went, so he would get, the reindeer would be all the cold areas in the northern kind of parts of the world, and then he would be able to go to North America, and then he should get some bison there that should take him around for a bit, and then can get some deer, then you can come to sort of Australia, and Australia can have kangaroos maybe that will take him around, and then to Africa, which will be, you know, one of the myriad of antelope species, depending where in Africa he is, that can take him around. I think that would be a fair call. That would have been better than just the reindeer by themselves. I don't know why the reindeer got so famous, but anyway, that's probably the reason why, is because of the area that Santa Claus is said to come from. We should write to him. Did you write to him this year, Kirsty? Did you ask? Did you ask for anything specific? What did you want for Christmas, Kirsty? And also, do you think you're on the good list or the bad list? Did you send your letter on the 1st of December? You want a platypus? Kirsty, you can't have a platypus. You can't import exotic animals into Africa. It's not good. Unless you run a zoo. Do you have a zoo? Kirsty has all kinds of things, so it's possible that she has a zoo. You've got geese, don't you, Kirsty? Or ducks? Ducks. Kirsty's got ducks at home. A toy one. A toy one, and you're on the good list. Okay, a toy one you can have. And Kirsty is on the good list, apparently. I'm not sure which Santa she wrote to, but if that Santa has obviously not been watching the Djuma crew for very long, because if any of the Djuma crew are on the good list, then then something's gone very wrong. There's been a miscalculation. The printing is off. Okay. Manu, Christmas, anything you want? There's lots of things we want, yes. But there's many things, like I say, that we all want. Manu probably wants a red digital camera or a Phantom Flex and a 51,000 Canon lens. That's probably what Manu would like. Most of the camera operators would want that combination. Good. Let's send you back down to South Africa. We haven't heard from Sydney for a while, so we're going to ask him whether he's on the naughty or the nice list for Santa.
Yeah, this side where I am is difficult a little bit, as I have not yet noticed any of the fresher tracks of any of these cats. I've been around the Chitwa area. I looked everywhere in that area and we saw nothing. Now I am back in Djuma, trying all the way back towards the Buffelshoek Dam, hoping to find something in that area. So quite a lot of impalas everywhere. Laura, the forecast for this week, I am not too sure, but looking at the weather condition at the moment, I can promise you that the rain is building. You can see that the clouds are building at the moment. We might get some rain anytime this week. So there is a clear weather prediction for Thursday. So Thursday we might get heavy rains in the area. But we want more rain because some of the pens and some of the dams, they are not full. Dams such as Buffelshoek does have some water now, but is not what we are expecting. We are expecting more. So you can see one of the pens here. So this is a seasonal pen. Only when it's raining you will get some water, but after the rain animals will finish this water very quickly. So but it has been dry for quite a long time now. There is water there. It's not even full, not yet full at the moment. So you can see that the sun is very hot in the area. After raining, when the sun is burning again, it takes all this water to evaporate. So that's why we need more water, so that some of this water is going to be taken by the animals, whereas other waters will go through evaporation. So this side where I am, the good news, the pen is man-made, and that is true. So you can see that it has got a wall, which is clear that it has been designed. So normally the natural pens, you don't see the wall because it is as a result of digging. So when the animals are digging, you don't see the layers on the edges. So the side where I am is very, very thick at the moment. So at the moment, let's go back to James and hear what he is having at the moment.
We are having a yellow-billed hornbill, and it is now hiding from us in the manner of all other creatures. There, it has moved to the top. Craig, can you see it? Still trying to hide. It's doing a very good job of staying behind all the foliage in this Completum apiculatum tree. Wonderful sighting this, isn't it? It's very rare. Oh yes, thank you so much. The overwhelming desire to throw a stone at you right now is quite something. We are nearing Buffelshoek waterhole now. Let us go and see what is there. I wouldn't really throw a stone at a hornbill, of course. I promise. I have never thrown a stone at a hornbill before. I also can't throw very well. Oh, you want to know if I'm on the naughty list or the nice list for Santa? I have to make a confession to all of you that I don't believe in Santa Claus anymore. I think it's my parents who give me gifts. I think it is. I know that I get cards that say FC on them, Father Christmas, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am wrong, I'm definitely on the nice list because I'm always happy and friendly. Always. I'm never grumpy. I'm never slightly unkind, so I'm definitely on the nice list. There are no animals at Buffelshoek Waterhole. There's just mud. Just a bit of mud. Tristan would like to know what I've been drinking this morning. He thinks I am inebriated in some way. Tristan, I had a very strong cup of coffee this morning, but that's all. And one tennis biscuit. Do you get tennis biscuits in other parts of the world? I suspect it's only here. A sort of coconut-based, bland, sugary morning snack, if you like. Perhaps that's why I'm not finding anything. Too much tennis biscuit. Anyway, that's all I've had, Tristan. Ah, I see. And Kirsten says if I believe in Santa, I will find things like Tristan. There are so many things I could say to that, which I'm not going to. Rhonda, what does Rhonda think I'm going to get? A lump of coal. Rhonda, I may well get a lump of coal. There's a squirrel, Craig. How's that for a lump of coal? It's eating something, Craig. It's found itself a little nut to eat. I wonder what kind of nut it is. You know, we watched one of these things in camp the other day eating a spider in this manner. So although they are nut eaters, they are not only nut eaters. They will eat little invertebrates, and in this case a nasty little spider, which was trying to make its innocent way, not nasty at all, was trying to make its innocent way from one part of the camp to another, whereupon it was set upon by a squirrel. I love these things. They are very entertaining to watch. This one is obviously a male. He's now looking under sticks. And although they're called tree squirrels, they A, spend a lot of time on the ground, and B, they also sleep in termite mounds. More and more I've noticed this. What is it doing? Just moving sticks. No, I don't think it's finding nuts and seeds there. I doubt there are any seeds left, so I'm pretty sure that it's eating insects. I guess they're such fun to watch because they are busy all the time. They are not lurking on their backs. I just want to see if what the record of the biggest prey they've taken is. You know, in South Africa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there are 7 squirrel species, which we only get 1 here, of course, unfortunately. It's not unfortunate, it's totally normal. Predominantly vegetarian, it says, although insects are an important secondary component of their diet at certain times of the year. A spider is obviously not an insect. Flowers, seeds, flowers, leaves, seeds, berries, fruits, bark, wide variety of plants and grasses. So they eat quite a lot of flowers, apparently, during the winter, at least during the summer. Very nice. It says here, males apparently show testicular regression between January and June. Well, we're obviously not between January and June, and there ain't no such thing going on with this particular squirrel. You can see behind his tail, he is very large. He is well endowed. Now, the reason for that is interesting. I'm just quickly checking this here. Yeah. What normally happens with creatures that have such outlandishly sized testicles is that there's quite a lot of what we call sperm competition. So an estrus female will probably mate with more than one male. And obviously, the bigger the testicles are, the greater the chance that if you are a male squirrel and you have enormous testicles and bigger testicles than another male squirrel, then the chances are your sperm, because of the volume you produce, will make it to the egg before your rivals. So that's probably the selective pressure that has made them have such very large testicles. I imagine they must hamper movement quite a lot. Cal 6, I don't know. I mean, they must be pretty close. I've just had a look at it now, but I don't know if they are the biggest. They certainly have proportionately the largest ones I think I've seen. I'm trying to think of I mean, you see these goats and sheep wandering around with fairly enormous testicles. They must be pretty close. I don't know. Maybe somebody can look that up. The largest testicle to mass ratio. Yeah, they got to be close. They got to be right up there. It looks extremely uncomfortable, A, and B, inconvenient. When you have to run over trees and twigs and that sort of thing, I imagine the chances of doing yourself a very painful injury must be very high. So we've had one, let's just go through our list today, Craig. One tree squirrel, one gymnogene, one tawny eagle, a vulture, yes. And what? Starling, yes, a starling. And I think a drongo landed in the eagle sighting. And the astounding hornbill sighting, yes, that's quite a good return. 2 hours driving about the place. The amazing hornbill. Let's not forget the amazing hornbill. I'm going on leave tomorrow, everybody. So you will be free of my lack of skills for the next 3 weeks. I'm holidaying the coast. I shall go into the sea and rejuvenate my finding skills. Cat, no, very close though. So meerkats are mongoose species, surrogates, and very closely, I mean, they are a mongoose species. We don't find them here because they are very specially adapted to living in much drier areas. And so they'd be substituted here by the banded mongoose and the dwarf mongoose. They're the two social herpestids, if you like, or social mongoose that we find in this area. Very similar kind of a social structure and probably relatively similar diet. I'm sorry that some of you are upset that I'm going on leave. Well, I'm very pleased, in fact, that some of you are upset that I'm going on leave. That makes me feel much better after being called Bitter Betty today, and you know, obviously that rather lamentable discussion about the suppositories. Sharon says all leave has been cancelled for those who don't believe in Santa. I don't think that's fair. I'll tell you would tell you the story about another I would tell you a story about Father Christmas, but with young children watching, I don't want to ruin this time of the year for them. I've probably already done that. Mobile Paddy, you think I'm going to be visited by the ghost of past presenters this Christmas? I hope not. Mostly because I don't think that any of our past presenters has shuffled off this mortal coil just yet, so with any luck there won't be any ghost visitors, perhaps some actual ones, but no ghosts. I think all of Wild Earth's presenters are still extant. Tom, you say if I name all the reindeer now I can go on leave. I really don't think I can. How many are there? 12. There's definitely no way I can remember them all. Thank you, Kirsten. Kirsten says she'll give me a clue. One is called Rudolph. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Very helpful. I'm not going to go down the road of trying to name all of them. I don't even know how many there are. Ooh, that's quite interesting. I do say quite interesting. I mean, I don't think it's absolutely astonishingly, amazingly interesting, but it's quite interesting. And Paula, you say you think there are 8. Well, may I suggest you send me a list of them? We've got false marula trees here, and they're flowering, and the sound of bees is very loud. It's a wonderful sound. It is the sound of a healthy ecosystem. I just don't want to be stinged, obviously. Nobody wants to be stinged at 7 in the morning. And they have a gorgeous and unique smell. I often talk about a subtle sweet smell out here, and that is sort of what they have, but it's much more a citrusy, soft citrus smell. It's basically like marmalade. Some people don't like marmalade, they're not to be trusted. There you are, Craig. Would you like to smell the marmalade? You don't like marmalade? Really? You're definitely not to be trusted. There I was thinking we could be friends. I see that is not the case anymore. Well, to those of you who I can trust, this smells like marmalade. It's very delicious. Come on, Craig, give it a smell. You don't have to eat it. What do you think? Yes, he says sort of faintly. No, I can't taste it flying. Well, I can actually. There you are, flying high. Tastes of nothing, really. There we go. The marmalade flavoured false marula flower. Very nice. Right, Sid is having about as much luck as I am at the moment, although he'd certainly had some better luck earlier on.
Even difficult to find an impala here where I am at the moment. I am heading towards the tree house dam area to see if maybe we cannot be lucky on that side, as I heard earlier that James is heading towards the Buffalo's Hook Dam. So I'm trying my luck much more this side of tree house. There's quite a lot of green trees where I am, and starting to bring flowers in order to bring back the fruits. So at the moment, there are no fruits. So we'll be having some fruits. The only fruits I'm seeing now is for the marulas. So anytime soon we are going to start having the amarula bears and elephants also eating a lot of marulas here. End of December is when the elephants are starting to have the marulas. Judy, there is quite a lot of traditional ceremonies taking place by this time of the year, because this is the time when the families are gathering, and when they're gathering there's quite a lot of rituals and there's quite a lot of traditional participations. Now is the best time for those kind of activities. April is when we are gathering, and also some of the long weekends, but normally it's now by April. So quite a lot of people are now having ceremonies. Those who have lost the husband as well is when they are going to pick up some of the trees, when the trees are recovering, and wash and drink some of the ingredients from the trees in order to wash themselves. So when the trees are now starting to bring back these leaves, there's quite a lot of associated belief that is the beginning of everything. To the other people, a beginning of a new life. We have just arrived now at the tree house dam, where there is also a little bit of water at the moment, but only animals we are seeing here is the Egyptian goose. No antelopes and no predators. So you can see this Egyptian goose here. They are dominating all the small water holes here in Juma at the moment. There is even a carcass from the tortoise. I think this is the tortoise somewhere here, if not a rock. You can see there's an old carcass of the tortoise. Maybe it was brought here by some of these animals playing with it. So now let's quickly go back to James, who's got a woodpecker at the moment.
We have a woodpecker, everybody. And you know what that is? Anybody got any idea as to which woodpecker this is? It's very special. It's the first time I've ever put this on camera here. This is really cool. Any clever ideas, anybody, which woodpecker this is? I'll give you a clue. Can you see it's not feeding? Cal 6, you say a woody woodpecker. Cal 6, go back to school. It's not a woody woodpecker, no. No, Daniel, it is not a red-headed woodpecker. You'll find that they all have red heads. Carol, you say cardinal. Negative, it is not a cardinal. I'm willing to bet that nobody's put this thing on camera before. I'm not willing to bet, but I'm fairly sure. Carbunca a peckerwood, and are you just being silly? That's really very special. Thank you, Joe, for taking it seriously and for getting it correct. This, everyone, is the Bennett's woodpecker. Now watch where it lands. Yeah, okay, so it's landed on the ground. Now the Bennett's woodpecker normally feeds on the ground, and I'll show you what we were looking for there because the light wasn't great for the camera. The Bennett's is this one here. I'll tap on it later, because the only one you could confuse it with really is the golden-tailed, which is that one there. And the difference is, if you look at the face of the Bennett's has got no spotting. It's got a totally plain white face, which is exactly what that bird had. And the golden-tailed, which looks very similar, has got a few spots on its cheeks. It's also streaked down the front as opposed to spotted. That's really quite fun. the Bennett's woodpecker, and what it did, you see, it wasn't feeding over there, it was just preening, and when it took off, characteristic woodpecking dipping flight, and then it landed on the ground, often on a termite mound where it will go foraging. It is not a driller. That is how lens covers get lost. The Bennett's woodpecker. I'm not feeling the excitement from you all, everybody. Yvette, I'm not sure how it got its name. Obviously, it was named for some ornithologist named Bennett. I don't know who he was or if he named anything else. Of course, we had, there are very familiar naturalists who have given their names to many species like Burchell and Wahlberg. But I'm not sure who Bennett was. Thank you, Kathy. You say that you're excited about the Bennett's woodpecker. Has anybody got a recollection of seeing that woodpecker before? Did you have a hornbill? A buffalo? A buffalo. An actual buffalo. Oh my goodness. There is a buffalo, everybody. Duke, you say Tristan had one in February. Ah, of course, but Tristan gets everything, doesn't he? That's slightly saddening to hear. I'm very glad that we have more of them than just one. But Tristan had one in February. Well done, Tristan. Taking my thunder once again. Here is a mammal. A fairly large mammal, known as a buffalo. And actually, it's a small herd. A breeding herd of 4. Oh, it's the same ones that Sydney had earlier. I thought Sydney had some Duggar boys. That is most certainly a cow, with another cow and a calf, and maybe a bull. How do you know it's the same one that Sydney had earlier? Yeah, this is 3 cows and a little calf. No, it's 2 cows, a calf and a bull. A breeding herd. Of course, calling this a breeding herd is ridiculous. I suspect they've been separated from the main herd. There is a herd on Torchwood, which is not too far to the east of where we are now. And I believe they were set upon by some lions last night. Let me just move back a little bit. We'll milk this sighting slightly more, even though, of course, you have seen these things before today. There we are. They're enjoying the green grass. Buffalo herds, of course, do split up quite a lot during the summer because there is food and water everywhere. It's not concentrated. And you can hear the hornbills calling. Very nice. Right, well, they're going to graze off towards the north. We're going to continue down to the south. Let's see if we can pick something else up. Bennett's woodpecker and a buffalo, both of which have been found by other people. Dash Dash says, thank you for showing me Sydney's leftovers. It's my pleasure. I enjoyed showing you those after I showed you the bird that Tristan showed you in February. Kirsten has now said that we're going to go to cross to not Tristan, to Sydney, who's going to show us something new.
All I can smell here in the area is the elephant droppings. It's showing that the elephants are in the area where we are heading to now. We might be lucky with them, or maybe the droppings are just very much fresh. So it's difficult these days to hear the elephant from breaking down the trees because they've got a lot of food. They don't break the branches too much. And it's also very much easy to pass such a big animal here as the bush is so very thick at the moment. For this side here where I am, the grass is not very much green. Only the trees look very green, but the grass is still very dry. Look at that. So you can see that this rain is being very much selective. Grasses are not excited where I am. There's still quite a lot of fuel load. The fuel load, I'm referring to the old materials which can influence a lot of wildfires. So it means in the reserve it has been raining a lot. I haven't seen yet the secretary birds here in Juba, but secretary birds here in South Africa, they are occurring in quite a lot of places. Where I come from, I used to see them. Even a place I worked before, I used to see them. They are secretary birds, yes, much more here in South Africa. A secretary bird is one of those beautiful birds. I like the way how they walk. At one stage, I saw them fighting a snake, but they won the battle. It's difficult to see the tracks here where I am. Yesterday I saw some leopard tracks coming from this area, so that's why today I just want to see if maybe we can be lucky with any of those cats here. So now let's go to the Masai Mara where Tristan is looking for something by the Mara River.
Indeed, you are back with us, and you can see we're at the river, and there's a few hippos that are milling about, there's a few crocodiles that are around. It's the typical kind of scenery when you're at the main north crossing, is the kind of ebb and flow of these two creatures milling about one another. At the moment though, no sign of any animals that are anywhere actually near to coming down to the river, and so the crocodiles, it's their time now where they go on diet for a while everybody else is going to feast over the Christmas season. And particularly a lot of the animals out here, with all the rains that they've been having, everything's greened up quite nicely. These guys, unfortunately, they don't have the festive season now. Their festive season is from July all the way this year until almost late October. So they had a nice long season of getting food. Although this particular area where we are now, the crossings weren't great in terms of the amount of crocodiles, amount of animals that came up here. Most of the crossings happened to the south, and so these crocodiles would have not got nearly as much as maybe they had had in previous years, given that the wildebeest didn't use this crossing nearly as much as what the southern crossings were used. Now what you'll find is just behind these crocs is a hippo that's going to come out and show itself fairly shortly, and that that hippo, as it's kind of bobbing along looking at the crocodiles, there you go, you can see the two of them together. What's interesting is that there's a tiny baby with these. There it is. You see the little tiny baby? It's flickering its ears. So a very, very small little one that is with mom, and that's why mom is watching those crocodiles very carefully. She's making 100% sure that they don't go too close to her baby. That's the only real threat that a crocodile will provide a hippo, is when it's got young, and when the young is kind of that small, big crocodiles, bigger than what these two are, will potentially go after them. It's a very dangerous game to play, because obviously hippos are incredibly powerful animals in their own right and can be extremely dangerous when it comes to being able to chomp down. And so, you know, they just keep an eye on those crocs, make sure that they get past them, get the baby to safety, and then everything is fine. It would take a very brave crocodile though to go after a hippo in a space like this, because there's a number of hippos and they'd all get quite flustered by it, and you'd probably end up with a lot of commotion, and crocodile would have to be very quick if it was to grab that baby and swim off with it. But that little one is tiny, tiny, tiny. It's only probably, I would say, a month old. I saw it the first time I came down to the river when I arrived here, so that was at least, what, 2.5 weeks ago. So it's must be close to about a month old in terms of its age. It's going slowly though into the middle of the pod. It's difficult to see them. You can just kind of see these little V lines. There it is. So it's the hippo right in front. Sorry, that's my head that you're looking at. So there it went under again. Now hopefully it will show itself once more. It was lying on the bank having a bit of a suntan with mom, but mom for some reason decided didn't want to be out anymore and decided to come back into the water, and they're lounging now in amongst all the other hippos that are there, and so they'll be very safe in there. There will be no crocodile that will try and go through all of that to try and kind of get to that little baby. So that's why she probably positioned herself where she has. Absolutely kind of beautiful though to see lots and lots of hippos. There's a little hippo stare down. I don't know where the little baby's gone now. Actually, I've lost it. There's two little ones in here. There's one tiny, tiny, tiny one. There, that one. It just popped its head up. It's very cute, as a lot of you are saying. And then there's another one that's slightly older. I think it's actually the one that's a little bit up and to the left there, Manu. Close to the rock. There it is. I think it's the one of those. There should be a small one up there that pops its head up as well. So there's a few little-ish ones, and then there's a very, very small one that is around, which is nice. And you'll find that these guys have the best life when it's hot, when it's bright sunny weather like we've got now. They're going to really thoroughly enjoy being in the river, and then you'll find when it's kind of cooler they can go out and sort of spend some time on the banks where they can warm up quite nicely. The crocs on the other hand, well, they're absorbing lots of sunshine just to get their metabolism and get themselves sorted out. Now what's going on there? Looks like two crocodiles. Let's just see what's happening. See lots of breathing happening. What are you two up to? Is there some sort of meat item that they've got? Looks like it, because there's a lot of crocodiles milling there. They got something there, Manu. Looks like they're chomping at something. You can see there's 3 crocodiles that have all gotten together there. Yes, they've got meat. Look, there we go. There's a bit of a carcass that's just come up. So I don't know what they managed to grab, but remember with crocodiles what they will do is they will get themselves into a situation where they'll take meat under, and they'll basically almost store it in that they'll put it under, wait for it to rot and soften. Because they don't have the ability to cut pieces off, they've basically got to wait until it rots, and then they grab it and then they'll twist and try and pull chunks off. So they've obviously got some sort of meat item in there. What that is impossible to tell from what we saw there. It could be anything from a Tommy to an impala to a zebra. Could even be a wildebeest that crossed a few weeks ago. I doubt it though, because these crocs probably would have eaten most of that by now already. But you can see lots of crocs kind of making their way there, and they're all dwarfed by that one big one that is sitting sort of on the edge. Now I wonder whether or not we're going to end up seeing what they're actually feeding on, if one of them will lift their head with more of the carcass. Seems as though there we go, there's the roll, that death roll that we're talking about. Now that crocodile is massive in comparison to the rest. Look at the size of it compared to the other one that's coming in. The head sizes are completely different. Now the one that's coming in from the right going towards it, that crocodile is about the size of the ones that are lying on the bank, but it is completely dwarfed by that massive individual that is moving around there. That is a huge crocodile. So one of the Mara giants that we get. There's some seriously big guys here, and you kind of forget very quickly that there's massive crocodiles in this world until you come here and you see some of these guys that are moving around. Right, now from one huge animal, let's send you back to South Africa with another huge animal. And no, I'm not talking about James Henry.
That was the most predictable link in the world when he said, I am going to send you from one huge animal to another huge animal. I just knew what was coming straight after that was a no, I'm not talking about James. Because, of course, the greatest jokes about James are his age, his height, and his lack of hair. Anyway, here we have a magnificent bull elephant. I put him at roughly 40 to, say 40 years of age. He's just got that really filled out size of the mature bull, maybe even older. Totally confident in his skin and his place in the wilderness. Isn't he great? He's absolutely massive. It's about a 5-ton animal, 5,000 kilograms, 12,000 pounds odd. Yes, never too late. He doesn't have a bitten earlobe. He was just a bit of a rock star in his youth, I think, or perhaps just somebody who, as a student, thought it was a good idea to have an earring. And that's what he had there. And then I think he got caught on a bush, and eventually it was pulled out. You know, must have been quite sore. In fact, he's probably had them on both sides. See, he's just acknowledging my point there. You'd probably find that that's a rip in his ear from when he was little. It's difficult to see a tree that could have done that to him at this age, but maybe a particularly thorny knobthorn when he was a youngster. I must say, being 42 years of age myself, and thinking that elephant's probably about the same age, it's just astounding to think in those terms that that animal is the same age as me, and imagine him being born in 1976 as a tiny little 100-kilogram elephant, and how our lives have trod parallel paths in the same country, and I don't suppose the experience has been vaguely similar for either of us. And as Kirsten says, he doesn't pay a tax. Of course, if we wanted to be very sad about it, we could say that his kith and kin certainly have paid taxes in terms of the numbers that have been sacrificed to poaching. That means that this elephant would have made it through all of the culling that took place between 1976 and 1996, so 20 years of elephant culling that took place in the Kruger Park. So he would have experienced all of the trauma of those choppers flying above them, wondering if his herd was going to be taken this year, and clearly it wasn't. It's very interesting to think of it like that. And I imagine if you'd met this elephant 20 years ago, or maybe, let's say, as he was coming into his prime, so let's say in the year 2000 odd, not quite his prime yet, but in the year 2000 he would have been a much less confiding bull than he is now. he would have either run away or shown a great deal of resentment to human beings. And now he has regained, to some extent, his trust of being around people. That is the great thing about the Sabi Sands. It's also one of the great dangers for new guides in the Sabi Sands, is that the elephants here do tend to be very much more relaxed than they are in some other parts, because they've become used to us and they've become aware that we are not a threat. And you never want to be complacent around a 5-ton animal, though, that could flip your car over with not so much as a thought. That's why I've stopped where I have. We're about 50 meters from him now, about 160 or 70 feet. There we are. And if he wants to come towards us as he feeds, then that's fine, but I'm not going to approach him any closer. If he came stomping down into the riverbed, then I may well reverse out of the way. All right, I'm going to sit with this elephant. I think this is by far the best sighting we've had today, and it may turn even better. Let's go back to the Mara, where Tristan is with the enormous crocodile. I think it's managed to pull its carcass out.
Well, enjoy sitting with your elephant. We're still sitting with our huge crocodiles, and you can see that this big one is the one that's actually bossing what's going on. So they do have a chunk of meat. It's not a huge chunk, and we're not sure yet what it is. It kind of lifted it briefly. The skin looks quite thick, so maybe a piece of a hippo. And they're starting to crocs are starting to come from all over and grab and doing little death rolls and things, and so hopefully there's going to be a bit of disturbance and they'll actually start kind of picking pieces up, and we'll start to see exactly what's going on and what animal they have got to feed on. But you can see more and more starting to arrive. Slowly but surely the others have sensed, hang on a second, there's a food source here, and so they're coming in, and now there's another really large croc that's joining the fray. So there's another big guy over there, and hopefully then we'll be able to see what exactly they've got, and there'll be a bit of a tug of war that takes place. Crocodiles, when they feed and they're feasting, you'll find that multiple ones will come in and feed. Even with big crocodiles like this, the others will also come in, they'll all grab, and then various ones will twist and turn and try and pull off chunks as they go, and be able to then try sort of loosen a piece, and each one will then get a little mouthful and kind of eat it. So they do feed on a carcass together, and you'll find that it doesn't last very long when they do all get bits. What's interesting though is this big one has got it in its mouth. So the one that's on the far left is the one that's got it in its mouth at the moment, and it's just facing up current, and the rest of the crocodiles are kind of coming towards the edge of it and almost trying to get somewhere where they can grab on and sort of feed. But I think that one is just a little too large for most of them, that they're all a bit kind of nervous of going too close. The river here is just absolutely teeming with these guys. It's amazing how many crocodiles live in this section, and any animal that crosses here at the moment is going to have a seriously tough time. It's going to be almost impossible for any of these guys to really kind of cross. The crocodiles will be, while not hungry, because remember, these guys, once they've eaten wildebeest and have gone through the crossings and those kind of things, they can kind of shut down for quite some time before they actually need to feed again. So they're slow to metabolize what they eat. But if an opportunity presents itself, you'll find, given that there's been very little crossing the river in the last few weeks, that they'll probably take it quite easy. Now look, this one's lifting its head slightly. Let's see if it lifts the piece out for us. Come on, do it. It's not really eating, it's just kind of holding on. I think there's so much competition that it knows if it lets that thing go, it's going to be gone and lost. But I'm hoping it's going to lift its head and chomp it down. You know how crocodiles do, they kind of lift their heads out and then they flick up their food and then get it in and then chomp it down. But no, let's put its nose back down again. Come on, crocodile, show us what you're eating. Whatever it is, the skin looks very thick. Bridget, it is incredible how they blend in so well. You sometimes don't even notice that they're around. So if you kind of, obviously the ones where their backs are out are much better, but that one that we're looking at that's got the food in its mouth, when you go back like this, it just looks like another rock that's in the river. So you can't really see it at all. And if they drop down even lower and it's just their eyes, you can see why they can creep up towards animals without things even knowing that they're there. What's interesting though is with these guys is during the migration there's really no kind of sneaking up. They just bomb in and race in as quick as possible, and the pandemonium, they know that they don't actually have to be stealthy. In other areas they'll be incredibly stealthy. They'll cruise up slowly to the edge of the water and they'll just be able to see what's going on with that membrane that covers their eye, and they'll sit there, and sometimes they'll sit for as long as an hour underwater, so they're able to slow their heartbeat to 2 beats per minute, which is almost nothing. It's basically dead, and that means that they don't metabolize the oxygen that fast, and they can then stay underwater for close to 2 hours, which is pretty crazy, before they need to breathe again. So you'll find that they'll sit there, they can sit for about an hour to 2 hours, and they wait very patiently, and as things come in to drink, they then launch out and grab them and try and pull them in. So an incredible animal in that regard, and their camouflage is perfect for what they do. You can see how they get darker as they get older, so they start off quite vibrant in color, and then as they get to this older kind of phase, they start to darken up. Chris, no. It's impossible. You will never outswim a crocodile. You don't realize how fast these things move until you actually see a crocodile chasing after something. It really is impressive to watch. Crocs swim a lot faster than people give them credit for, and you'll be foolish to think that you will outswim one of these giants. They really are amazing in their ability to move. They perfectly designed for it. They kind of streamlined with a head that gets to a small point in the middle, in the front, and then along the sort of edges, and then they've got this tail that is hugely powerful. It's all muscle, and so they'll use that tail, and that tail will thrust them through the water, and they'll move very quickly. So you have got no chance of outswimming a crocodile. If it decides that is what it wants and you are what it wants, it will then go after you, and you will not get away. That I can assure you. So what's happened now though is you can see that big one is kind of latched on, and all the other crocs are slowly drifting off. A lot of them are now pulled themselves out and are actually going to sit there. They've realized that there's not enough food for all of them to get around, and the competition is in a form of a very large crocodile, and so better that they just leave it and let him kind of feed. It wasn't a very big piece. When he picked it up, we could see that it wasn't huge. It was just sort of a piece of almost blubber and fat. So maybe a hippo that they managed to find a chunk of. That would be my guess, I think, something like that. Nasty though, isn't it? The one animal I think that I fear out of all the animals that we get out here in Africa, you know, there's obviously dangerous animals on land, but there's just something about a crocodile that I just don't. I suppose it's because you can't read their behavior, because you can't see them half the time, and that's in itself is scary. So it's the animal that I would never mess with, and certainly water in Africa is not a thing that I take lightly and don't spend much time in it, because there's too many stories of people thinking no crocodiles are around and then getting hit. Right, back to James though. I think he's still with his Ellies, and it sounds like they're giving a good show.
We are still with our elephant, and he's come quite a lot closer to us. Closed the distance to about 25 meters. He's just feeding quietly, this time on a sickle bush, as far as I can tell. Yes, a sickle bush, a very green sickle bush, with spines that will go straight through the wall of a tire. Now he is watching us as he eats, fearless of the thorns, but he's not affected by us at all. Let's see what he does now. Douglas, the hide of a full-grown bull elephant is extremely durable. It is extremely thick leather. I don't know how durable it is in comparison with cow's leather or something like that, but I imagine it must be pretty durable. I'm just going to keep my voice nice and low. That little shake of the head that he gave there it wasn't aggressive, but it was almost as if he was saying, I can see you there, so, you know, let's keep our respectful Well, let's respect each other's space. And as I often say to you, I do believe that these highly intelligent animals, see the tails come out? Highly intelligent animals do get bored and are interested. There's an element of curiosity in their interactions with us. So that tail coming out is indicative of a slight discomfort perhaps. Let's see what he does now. He's not cornered in any way, so he could choose to go backwards. He could choose to go past us, I suppose. Let's see what he chooses to do. Now he's engaging in displacement behavior. He's not eating properly. Although that is a Dicrostachys bush or sickle bush. No, he is eating. Just looks like he's not paying a huge amount of attention to his eating. Right, now he's had enough of a look at us. May well move around to the other side. He's not showing any sign of aggression at all. A rampaging bull elephant, yes, I imagine their ears would bleed quite profusely if they were cut by a tree. Remember, they have that extensive network of veins in the back of the ears that they pump all of the blood of the body through in about 20 minutes. And I can imagine if one of those veins was perforated at all, it would bleed quite a lot. But I also imagine it would heal fairly quickly. You do see elephants with missing ears and with half ears. Almost certainly from being in some kind of incident with a predator when they're very little. Because there's not much that's going to pull an elephant's ear off at this age. He doesn't have much hair on the back of his tail if you look there. Shame. That's not very impressive, old fellow. We're often talking or comparing the different sizes of the animals that we get between the Mara and here. And I think these elephants are larger than the Mara elephants. I think they're fuller. They've got a much more rounded, sort of stocky, muscular appearance. I'm sure they both get on equally well in either environment. But I think these chaps are slightly larger. Rachel, I don't know what the physical properties would be of a rhino versus elephant skin. I don't know. They're both known as pachyderms, of course, which I think means thick-skinned, if I'm not mistaken. Thick or wrinkly-skinned, I can never remember exactly. They're probably very similar in many respects. One of the things that possibly differentiates them is that elephant skin doesn't seem to attract ticks in the same way that rhino skin does, and I wonder if that isn't because it's thicker, A, and B, there is possibly a blood supply further inside, if you know what I mean, further away from the surface. This is definitely more wrinkly than rhino skin as well. I think rhino probably also have a larger number of sweat glands. Hello, Emma. You're obviously a wee girl watching this show. And you want to know if he's a grandpa because he's so wrinkly. You know, Emma, when they're born, they're that wrinkly. So although as a human being you're used to seeing wrinkly people and associating them with being very old. In actual fact, all elephants, from the day they're born, have got very wrinkly skin, and for various complicated reasons that helps them to stay cool, because of course it gets very, very hot here, and so when it's very hot, that wrinkly skin helps them to stay a little bit cooler. Let's spend another few minutes with this chap, and then I think we'll head away from him, because we can't see him very well. All we can see is his wrinkly skin. He's just feeding very quietly now. He's only about 15 meters from us. Oh, hang on a sec. Here he goes. Goodbye, old fellow. Thank you for making our morning. Certainly before you arrived, it was very dull. From an animal point of view, not a discussion point of view, of course. Alrighty, let's go back to Tristan in the Marsi Mara. He is still sitting at the Mara River with the crocodiles, and find out what it is that those crocodiles are doing.
Well, James, we've taken a leaf out of your book and we're doing a bit of birding this now that we're at the river, and we've got the beautiful yellow-billed woodstock is its name, and these guys, very common in this particular part of the world to see them often on the edges of the river. Unfortunately, it's very close to the bank, so there's some grass that's obscuring its face. One little blade of grass and then a whole bunch of twigs. But it's sitting here, and you'll often find they sit like that, right there, on one leg. They tuck the one leg up, and then they just stand on one by itself, and it's a funny trait that they have. I don't know why they do it. Maybe just to kind of take a bit of pressure off, and just to sort of rest that leg, much like we, I suppose, shift our stance if we stand for long periods. Now, these guys are incredible fishing birds. There's a place in South Africa, or in the Kruger Park, called Sunset Dam. Sunset Dam is on the eastern side of the Kruger, in the southeast, close to a camp called Lower Sabi, in fact just outside the camp called Lower Sabi. And it, at various times of the year, has lots of these birds, sometimes as many as 50, 60 of them that are congregated there, and they wade through the shallows and they catch all kinds of things. And sitting an afternoon with these guys can be some of the most fun that you can imagine. It's amazing what they pull out, and their efficiency at being able to find food, and the patience that they show as they move and slowly kind of just swipe their beak from side to side, and eventually they pick up something and they grab it. And I've seen them pull out some rather large fish, crabs, terrapins, all kinds of different things, but fish is really the main target, and frogs. And those are also very high up on the list of things to eat. And so at the moment, these guys, a lot of them won't actually be near the river. A lot of them are going to be in the marshy areas that we showed you this morning. Those will be a good place for them to feed, and far less crocodiles for them to worry about. Even though they are a large bird, a crocodile can still be a threat. Crocs are funny things. When they most of the time will leave a bird like this alone, but you'll get the odd one that maybe hasn't eaten as much and is a bit hungry and sees an opportunity, and they'll grab them. So for them, fishing in the marshes and those small shallow pans, much better than being on the river. What's also interesting with these guys is that while you can see very much a white bird, what you'll find at certain times of the year, particularly down in the Kruger system, so if you go onto like the Inmanetsi, Letaba, Olifant, Sabi to a degree, in certain areas, there's kind of a lot of freshwater mussels that come out, and the freshwater mussels are then eaten by these guys, and they actually take on the pigments, or this pinkish pigment on their wings and their feathers from eating those crustaceans. It's a very cool thing to see, and their wings become far more pink, almost like a flamingo pink, rather than the white that you see now. So there goes the foot tucked in. I'm going to just rest it. No, not really working very well today, standing on one foot. And you can see very, very large feet for the size of the leg, and large toes. That's just to spread the weight as much as possible. Now, Caroline, you're asking, is that a porcupine quill in the foreground? No porcupine quill, just branches and various grasses that are around. Unfortunately, no porcupine quill. A little to the right, no, it's a branch. Those are all branches. It's just the shadow and the light. Yes, unfortunately, it's not a quill. It'd be an odd place for a quill to be, actually. Don't typically see porcupine quills on the banks of rivers, but I can see what you were looking at. I can see kind of how you were sort of thinking about it. Right, I think let's leave our wood stalk. Sorry, Manu. I didn't mean to do that, actually. That was a mistake. I engaged the clutch rather than putting my foot on the brake. Sorry, Manu. So, another reason I wanted to be here, because the other day I was sitting here and there was a snipe that flew past and landed just below. So I'm trying to see if I can find the snipe again and see which one it is. And so while I do that, let's send you back across to Sydney.
There's a very big head of the impalas here where we are at the moment. Listen to that. That is a female we have just heard now doing she's trying to gather all the small ones. I can see the small ones are busy following that female. Look at the young males are playing here on the side. These young males are not yet ready for breeding. They're just playing and playing. They're part of the bachelor head. I can see there's quite a lot of males there. Look, another group of males is also playing there. So the breeding head is combined together here with the bachelor head. So I'm sure the dominant male is not worried because now is not yet the right time for breeding purposes. So they will be challenging each other anytime soon by the beginning of May. But from January is when you will see them starting to collect the females. But breeding is more during the May season. So this is what is called a safety in numbers when there's quite a lot of them together at the same area. So now let's quickly cross over to the Masai Mara where Tristan is having a lovely bed.
Well, we're sitting with a very pretty bird. It's called a pied wagtail, and it's singing us a little song. There's another one that's just joined it. So let's see if it'll keep singing. Beautiful, beautiful birds. So you can see it's got a short little call that makes a lot of noise, and then it kind of has a little variation of that that's far more melodious and far more kind of singy, if you want to call it that. So it's nice when they actually let out the proper kind of call. It sounds a lot better there when they get that sort of higher pitch. It's very cool. Now this bird and its call remind me also of childhood, which I'll tell you about now, but it's being vocal, so let's just listen to it for a little bit longer. We've been spoiled lately with birds calling. We've had some really nice sightings, from cranes to hornbills to wagtails. But I was saying it reminds me of childhood because my grandparents lived in a part of South Africa at one point that these guys were quite common. Used to see them on the lawns, and often after the lawn was mowed they would come and pick off all the little insects around there. And there was one that unfortunately had obviously somehow got something wrapped around its leg and had lost its leg completely, and it used to come every single day. It would walk around on the lawn and call like this, and we used to be able to watch it kind of move around, and it was just fine. And it was obviously not ideal that it had lost a leg, but it would walk around on its one leg and was still able to get around and find all the food that it wanted. It was a very cool little bird. I thoroughly enjoyed actually watching it go about its business, and there wasn't a day that it didn't come, which was quite cool. and it too would sit and sing like this as well. There, that's the proper call. How cool is this for a view of a wagtail? Normally wagtails, we don't get to see them right out in the open, so this is very cool that we're getting it like this. Very, very nice. Well, it's a nice way, I think, for us to kind of sit and enjoy the river. It's always nice doing a bit of birding on this river. There's a lot that goes on here, and often we come here and we just focus on crocodiles and hippos and crossings, but actually there's a lot of really cool, interesting things like pied wagtails and various other birds that are moving about and kind of going around. In fact, there's actually another species of wagtail that's just on the front sort of left. There's a dove. There it is. There should be in there. Is this or is it a young? No, there's a little grey wagtail that we've got there as well, which is quite nice. So it's a different species together, I think. Or it could be actually a juvenile. Is it a juvenile? Sorry, my jacket's actually over my screen, so I just saw the grey, but I'll have a proper look. It flew up towards the adult, so it must be just a young one that's around. I'll have a proper look just now. But it is that time of the day, unfortunately, where it's time for us to say goodbye for the morning. We are going to, well, I'm going to go head to the airstrip now to go pick up Steph, and the rest of the team are going to head back for breakfast. But from all of us, it's been a pleasure to see you this afternoon on the Sunset Safari.